better spot. All areas of the game look like through right now. The offense is starting to click, and that's what we've been missing. So feels right.
That was Ollie Marmol after the game last night. Audio courtesy of Valley Sports Midwest. He's saying that the road trip ended on a positive. Alex, they end up winning 3 of the last 4 games on the road trip. They go 3-4 overall against the Milwaukee Brewers and the LA Angels with Alex and T-Bone on BK. I don't know that I share the same amount of optimism as Ollie Marmol does, coming off of what I think was a mostly disastrous road trip for the St. Louis Cardinals. Yes, you were able to win 2 out of 3 against the Angels. That's one of the worst teams I've ever seen assembled. Like the current version of the LA Angels, that's a horrific baseball team. They're probably going to go on a potentially historic level of run in terms of just bad baseball.
I feel bad for Mike Trout coming to work every day.
I wanted to give their second baseman a hug. He struggled so mightily. Yesterday, there was a pop-up that went to him, and it's just like a totally routine level play. And I thought he was going to drop it. Like, I assumed that he was going to find a way to drop that pop-up. I can't remember who it was that hit it. It doesn't matter. He had like 4 plays in the game on Tuesday night where he's ranging to his right, Alex. He's like trying so hard to get there. He doesn't quite get there in time, so he has to slide. And then he tries to flip it over to the shortstop to be able to make a play at second. And he made exactly 0 of them. And he goes to the plate, and every time he comes up to the plate, I'm assuming that it's just going to end with a horrific looking swing. And he's just a microcosm of what that team is. So yeah, the Cardinals won 2 out of 3. They scored 10 runs, 7 runs, and 2 runs yesterday. The offense looks, generally speaking, a little bit better. I don't have the same optimism because the Cardinals allowed at least 5 runs in all 3 games of this series. Alex, the Angels had not scored 5 runs or more in all 3 games of any series so far this season until the last 3 days. That is a bad offense, and your pitching staff is leaking confidence right now. Lance Lynn did not have a good start last night. Your bullpen is starting to show signs of cracking without Matthew Liberatore as a part of it. You no longer have, I know he had struggles, but Giovanni Gallegos to throw out there that you can at least hope he returns to form because he's on the IL as well. Your pitching staff is giving you fewer innings than it needs to right now. I've got legitimate questions about where the Cardinals are at. I hope Ollie Marmol's right. I hope this offense is able to carry them for the foreseeable future. I have my skepticism, though, about if that's going to happen as they start playing games against Boston, Baltimore, and Chicago, which are going to be a very different test than being able to do this against a team like the Angels. Do you share Ollie Marmol's optimism?
No,
right now?
I don't. I mean, it's hard to. I said going into that series, like, it doesn't matter what you do against the Angels because I'm going to be very skeptical of you, because even if you have success, it's a team that doesn't have pitching, has an awful lineup, and to take 2 of 3 is great. If you would have swept, I would have given the team credit because, like, hey, it's not easy to sweep teams in Major League Baseball, but you didn't. So I can't have optimism. And you're right, the pitching, that's not something to be sitting waving celebratory flags when you're walking away from, giving up that many runs to that Angels team. And the hard part for me to be optimistic like Ollie Schilt is because we've seen this team exit out of a series and be like, hey, building blocks. And then what do? Lay an egg. Building blocks. Lay an egg. You won 2 of 3 against the Athletics. All right, feeling good about it. What'd you do? You got swept by the Milwaukee Brewers. You took 2 of 3 against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Then you took 2 of 3 against the Mets. Those are real building blocks because those are wild card teams. What'd you do? To the Tigers, to the White Sox.
Tough.
I can't have optimism after a series against a team that will be the worst team in Major League Baseball at the season's end by saying, yeah, but you went out there and you scored 19 runs against them. Don't care, because now you're going up against a legit pitching staff that's not going to have a bullpen that's just going to come in and keep walking batter after batter after batter.
Yeah, I know Ollie had to make those comments last night of let's go, troops. We are charging home and we're going to take on some of the best teams in baseball. I felt it was tone deaf. Because not only did they won the first 2 games of the Angels last night. Guys, they got the door beat off of them last night. The Angels just kicked your ass at their home ballpark.
They looked sluggish.
Yeah, and you're going to come out and say, hey, we're building momentum. No, you're not.
That's not the way to say that.
Your pitching is leaking. By the way, as much as they scored in this series, guys, on the road trip, they hit 150 with runners in scoring position. We're 11 for 73, and in the final 66 plate appearance of their visit to Anaheim, they had 1 hit with runners in scoring position. Sure, they're playing station to station
I see your
baseball.
looks, Alex. I get it.
You're not looking up.
They're not fixing their hitting with runners in scoring position problem, which goes all the way back to last year, even when we said the offense was a top 10 offense in baseball. There is no building block to be building outside of the fact that, yeah, you did your job and you took 2 or 3 from LA, but you did get your butt handed to you last night. And honestly, you could have lost game 2 of that series as well.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The YouTube chat is off and running as well. YouTube.com/101ESPN STL. This one comes from the YouTube chat. Wait a second. What happened to the sunshine and lollipops from yesterday? I don't know what show you were listening to.
You guys had sunshines and lollipops?
No.
I wasn't here yesterday.
Yesterday, things were better. Things felt a little better because they had won 3 in a row. And we basically said, listen, this is the start of what it needs to look like moving forward. But you're doing this against the Angels. And so it's really hard to grasp on to anything tangible. And when they go out there and play the way that they did last night, yeah, you lose a little bit of that. Any of the momentum that you had built in the previous 3 games, it's 3 games, man. There's not a whole lot of goodwill that's built up over that stretch of time. And then last night, all of it goes away. You're now 7 games below 500 once again. Now, I will say, you're like 3 games out of the wild card spot. So you're technically still in it. And that's real. Like the way that the wild card is now put together with the extra spot available to you, you can get back in this if you start playing good baseball. But it requires you to play good baseball. And even in the series, I don't know how much of that was the Cardinals playing well versus the Angels just handing it to them.
Well, the first game was the Angels basically gifting you that game.
I think so. And I think the second game, honestly, if we're just honest in our heart of hearts, it kind of was that too. The Angels started giving stuff away. And I will give them credit. The Cardinals deserve credit for this. They took it. When they got those opportunities, they were able to take them. In previous series, there have been a lot of moments where we've been critical of them for not taking advantage of the opportunities that are presented. Now, that being said, T-Bone's right. The Cardinals, when you look at what they've done in runners and scoring position situations, they're 11 for 73 on this road trip, a 151 batting average with runners in scoring position. They had 1 hit, 1, with a runner in scoring position in their final 66 plate appearances while in Anaheim against the Angels.
And I think that was only a single.
That's the problem. This is a team that is still not slugging. Even if you go in their last 9 games where they've been hitting better, they've been a better team, just hitting generally speaking, against the Mets, the Brewers, and the Angels. In this 9-game stretch, Alex, they are batting as a team .265. That is good for 6th best in the major leagues. That's a good batting average in this version of Major League Baseball. However, they are slugging .400 in this stretch of games, which is still not a good slugging percentage. You're just getting no extra base hits. You have 9 home runs in this stretch, which is a significant improvement from what they have been, but that's tied for 20th in Major League Baseball. And this is your quote-unquote hot stretch of play right now offensively. And it's coming while your pitching is really starting to wane off a bit. Your rotation is 28th in Major League Baseball in ERA this month. 28th. There are only 2 teams that have been worse than you in ERA by their rotation this month. The bullpen is back to relying on exclusively 3 arms. If JoJo, Helsley, and Kittredge are not available on any given night, I have 0 confidence in who they're throwing out there from the bullpen. And that goes back to the decision of having Matthew Liberatore as a starter right now. I'm worried about the way that this roster is constructed. Against the Angels, you could get away with it because it's such a bad baseball team on the other side. When you project forward and what it's going to look like against these quality opponents on the schedule, Boston, Baltimore, Chicago, I foresee some pretty dark days coming ahead, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of this, too, is because of the depth that you did not provide yourself in the starting pitching staff, because now that you're using Liberatore as your starter, your bullpen takes a massive blow. You don't have Giovanni Gallegos anymore. You're hoping that you get Keenan Middleton back, but you've put yourself in a bad position, which to T-Bone's point, I do think it's a little, like, I get Ollie has to say it, but once again, there's a different way of saying it than walking out of that press conference by saying, hey, we ended this road trip on a positive note. No, you won 1 game against the Brewers, which was the last one where you barely, by the skin of your chinny chin, avoided a sweep, and you were gifted 2 victories against the Angels. And yeah, you lost that last game because you beat yourself. I don't know if I can walk away from that trying to pump up my team by saying, hey, we had a good road trip, fellas. No, we won 3 games, and maybe we deserved 1 of them.
And I'm not even, like, the pitching, this is the pitching starting to normalize.
Sure.
Which I think we all expected, and that's fine. The problem is you've got to start slugging. Their lack of slug is what's going to sink the season. And I know people don't like to hear that. They're like, well, you can go station to station. No, pitching is so damn good. You've got to hit extra base hits. And they're just not doing it. And it's hard to look at anybody in that lineup and start saying, okay, these guys are really starting to play better. Outside of guys that you kind of felt good about going into that series. Like, felt pretty comfortable about Alec Burleson's bat going into that series. Well, guess what? That hasn't changed for me. You know, Matt Carpenter, I said, hey, let's just see what it looks like. Okay, he looks pretty good at the plate. But, like, Arenado hit 111 on this road trip because he had an OPS in the 3s. That's how bad the road trip was for Nolan Arenado. Goldie, there are some signs. Like, he's starting to drive the ball a little bit. I do feel a little bit better about him. But everybody else in the lineup, man, it is hard to look at that road trip and say, was it a success? No, but we certainly feel like momentum is building because I see no momentum being built.
There's one piece that I can look at right now and say to myself, I think I'm in. Guys, I have an announcement to make.
Oh, should I take the bed down or? Here, hold on. Yeah, you got a big announcement coming here.
I think I'm a Ciani head. I'm in on Michael Ciani. I believe in him.
Oh, that was real?
I think he's a real starting caliber outfielder in the major leagues. Now,
Wait, that's your announcement?
I think he needs to be suited around. Like, I think I'm getting Badered again. Because this guy, if he is,
Man, I took a day
he's batting
off.
in the top 8 of your order, woo, boy, you're going to have some issues. However, if he's an accent piece, if he's at the bottom of your lineup, and he's a guy that, like, any situation, whatever the situation calls for, he's going to go up there and make sure to execute. You need a fly ball to the outfield, sacrifice fly, he's got you. You need a bunt placed perfectly to move a runner over, he's your guy. You need over a 20-game stretch for him to be able to be, you know, somebody that can help boost the offense a bit. He can do that too. In his last 12 games, he's got 33 at-bats. Guys, he is batting .375 with a slugging percentage of .405. Now, that slugging percentage ain't great. I'm not going to lie to you, but he's getting hits. He's consistently getting on over his last 12 games. He's playing unbelievable defense in center field. He's one of the best defensive center fielders in the league. He's a perfect fourth outfielder. And what I expected...
he's starting for us.
Yeah, don't worry about it. What I expected for them to have from Victor Scott early on this season, Michael Ciani has legitimately become that. I'm not telling you got to get over your skis about this, but I enjoy watching him play baseball. One of the very few players on this team that I've enjoyed watching so far this year is Michael Ciani. I think I'm a Ciani head, guys. That's my announcement for today.
T-Bone, ask me what he's doing with runners in scoring position.
No, I don't want to know.
Just ask me.
How many at-bats does he have with runners in scoring position?
18.
Yeah, exactly. He's barely coming up with that.
Stop it.
I mean, it's the same amount as like Wilson Contreras, Lars Nootbaar, Von Herrera.
What's his numbers?
056.
Oh, God.
I kind of expected
He has 1 hit and 5 strikeouts.
1 for 18?
Yeah.
Is that plate appearances or at-bats?
That's both.
Oh, man.
Does
Not
he,
even walking?
Does he
when he's in
have
scoring
walks
position?
or anything like that?
He's got 2 walks.
So he's got 20 plate appearances, so he's like 1 for 20.
I mean, first of all, you didn't need
Does
to
he
make
have sack flies?
No,
How are we doing with sack hits?
No, we're not seeing any productive outs, as you like to call it.
I disagree. I don't believe that.
You didn't have to give me a big announcement that you were a Ciani head. I mean, I could have told you that the day the guy made his debut in center field for the Cardinals.
I like him, man. I think he's a solid player.
You like unproductive hitters in the outfield that are good defensively.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, give him a 10-year, $100 million contract.
I think they deserve a lot of credit. In all seriousness, I think they deserve a lot of credit for finding this player on the scrap heap.
But you can win with these guys. This is what we talked about at the beginning of the season. The problem is everyone else on your roster stinks.
Yeah.
He's doing what Victor Scott, what we expected to do. You're showing your speed. You've got incredible defense in center field. I don't care if your hitting sucks. The problem is everybody's hitting sucks, so now we're relying on Ciani.
Also, guys, people keep saying, like, oh, here he goes again, falling in love with somebody like Harrison Bader. Yeah, but Harrison Bader was a top 100 prospect. And so for him to become what he was with the Cardinals was disappointing for a lot of you. Now, I think he was better than people give him credit for. I think Harrison Bader was a really productive major league player that's going to have like a 15-year career because of all of the things that he does well. And we in St. Louis did not appreciate those things because of the hype that surrounded him. And I think if he had signed here via free agency for like $6 million a year, we'd really like Harrison Bader, I bet, if he had started somewhere else and then came to St. Louis. But because he was one of our own, you didn't view him that way. Ciani is a guy that should never have been expected to be anything at the major league level. This is a guy that, like, for most people, you were just hoping he goes down to AAA and you never see him on your major league roster. Hey, he's one of those 40-man players that you just never see, right? He was supposed to be Jose Fermin 2.0. but he's starting for you every day right now, and he's not making a joke of himself. And in fact, he's been a productive player for you at this level, and he's been excellent defensively. He's adding value on the bases. I think it's a really good get by the Cardinals to find this guy and pay nothing for him, gave up nothing to acquire Michael Ciani. It's a good move by them. They've missed on so many other things, and we've talked about those things ad nauseum. But, dude, he's added 6 runs in value via what he's done in the outfield for you. That's real. That's something that a lot of teams would kill to have right now on their roster. You just need other guys to hit around him.
Yeah. And by other guys, you mean everybody.
Yeah, pretty much.
BK loves Ciani.
Look, I like Ciani too. I don't know if we needed the announcement.
Oh,
I think he's their best center fielder in the organization right now.
I agree.
And
I wonder what they do when Tommy Edman gets back.
Yeah, depending on how the offense is going, I'd probably start Ciani in center.
I think so too.
Do you move that into second if Gorman's not hitting?
There's nothing wrong with having a glove first center fielder.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I don't know what you do. I mean, he could just be a utility guy because right now you have to have Burley in left, so you got to put Donovan at second. So Gorman's not even in the lineup.
Yep.
Ciani's OPS this year is like 600. If he gets 650-ish, you can play that guy every day. You need people around him to be better.
I mean, frankly, you can't take him out of the lineup because your defense takes a massive plummet, and when your defense sucks, your team is just done
credit
for.
to Ollie, by the way, for playing him every day, for not giving into what they did a year ago, where they're like, oh, crap, we got to find the offense. No, nobody else is hitting anyways. So, keep him in center field. Let's see what it looks like on a day-in, day-out basis as we continue moving forward. That's my announcement for today. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll get into some NFL quick hitters. We got the schedule released yesterday. Ooh, man, I've been waiting my entire life for the moment where we found out the dates in which the games were played, because we knew who was playing who, but now we know the dates and the times at which those games are going to be played and the platforms on which they will be played. So we'll get into all of that coming up in about 15 minutes or so. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. The YouTube chat off and running as well. YouTube.com/101ESPN STL. Coming up next, Jamie Rivers is in love. He's in love with one player that's hitting the free agency market this offseason. We'll discuss what this player represents for the Blues coming up next here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T1 on BK. So yesterday I was listening to the Fast Lane as I was on my way to get baby boy from daycare, Alex, and I heard Jamie Rivers talking about what the Blues need to do to improve their roster heading into next year. It was a good segment. They were talking about the Athletics checklist, which basically says, hey, construct a really good roster and you'll be able to win a cup. And it's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That
totally
works.
agree with that.
You put a winner on the ice and you're going to win.
So I thought Jamie did a good job of breaking down like where specifically they need to improve. And he's with you, Alex. It's about the defense, right? It's the offseason of the D, and the Blues are going to try to find one on the market.
He just took my line. Damn it, BK.
So Jamie has one guy that he is head over heels with. You remember when you were all in on Jamie Alexiak?
My mongoon that never became a thing.
That's what Jamie's doing this offseason, and he's got one name that continues to be spewed from his mouth. Here you go.
You watch the way these teams are competing in the playoffs, and we talked about the goaltending, and the Blues have that. And I'm just going to keep harping on this. Guys like Nikita Zadorov, if you add that guy, your defensive core is so much stronger. You don't have to add that high-end forward. It would be nice, yeah. I'd love to add a Mitch Marner or a Nylander just because, right? But there is a thing called the salary cap, and if you're going to build your team the right way, I don't want my Blues team to emulate, what the Maple Leafs are. If you guys are watching the playoffs, or when you do, it's the goaltending and the defense that are winning games.
Nikita Zadorov, I thought I was going to get a cue in there. There wasn't one. If Nikita Zadorov is available this offseason via free agency and the Vancouver Canucks let him walk, I would be interested. Here's my problem, Alex. According to the Daily Faceoff, and these things can go either way, we know that the projections are not perfect, but over on the Daily Faceoff, they have Zadorov projected for a 4-year deal at $5 million per year. He's 29 years old. He's a big defenseman that plays top 4 minutes, but typically not top pair minutes. I'd like to have him. I don't know that I want him on a 4-year deal at $5 million per year. I like the idea of Nikita Zadorov on the Blues. Like, if you told me, Alex, I can replace Torrey Krug with Nikita Zadorov, I think the Blues get better next year. You get size, you get something that you've been looking for with physicality in front of your own net, whether it's him, Jamie Alexiak, whoever, just that profile of player, I'm in. But do you think that the Blues can go out there and go to the free agent market? And Zadorov is the only left-handed defenseman available that's worth anything that is under
Really?
the age of 31.
It's Brady Shea and Shane Gostisbehere. That's what else is out there.
That's it. And so, like, when you're looking at the free agent market, it's basically Nikita Zadorov or bust for the Blues.
Yeah.
Can they do this? Can they go to the free agent market to be able to solve their issues on the blue line?
I don't believe so. And look, Zadorov is having a really good postseason right now. I mean, he has got 4 goals and 8 points so far for Vancouver. He's playing top pair minutes. He has looked really good. But I would be very concerned of falling into false pretenses of him looking good in this postseason and then hitting the free agency and thinking you're getting a number 1 defenseman or a top pair defenseman and then find out that, nope, that's not what you're getting because, at least according to Money Puck, he is playing all of his ice time with Quinn Hughes. You don't have a Quinn Hughes on your team. And that's me even saying, like, I don't think Colton Parayko's a Quinn Hughes. Surprise, surprise. Well, sometimes I do. But, like, if you look at what Zadorov did with Calgary this season, which I think is a lot more in line of what you'd be getting with him on this team, he was maybe, if you squint hard enough, he was a second-pair defenseman. But I always like to look at, like, what's that roster going to look like? So, like, if Zadorov is here, I'm assuming we're putting him on the top line with Colton Parayko. Or Letty stays with Parayko and Zadorov plays with Falk. I personally feel like what this team is lacking is the ability to have defensemen create offensive scoring opportunities in the offensive zone. Parayko's not very good at it, although he does it at times. Justin Falk took a massive step backwards this season. And in this scenario, your 2 options on the left side would be Nick Leddy and Nikita Zadorov. And if my guy that I'm paying $5 million to come in is playing 20-plus minutes a night, well, you're going to be on the ice in every offensive scenario. This season, on Hockey Reference, I mean, he's starting 64% of the time in the defensive zone. So if you want to go down the path of your top pair still being Leddy and Parayko and then Zadorov and Falk play together, that's fine. I still think you're missing, though, that dynamic playmaking, two-way defenseman. And that's where I just don't believe Zadorov is. If I could get Zadorov on what he's making right now at $3.2 million, hell yeah, I'm in. But if I got to give him 4 years at $5 million, you know what that feels a lot like to me? What you did originally with Marco Scandella. And then you're going to be stuck with another contract that you're going to be saying, well, how do we get out of this one? He does bring size to your team, but I don't think you're missing size right now. I think you're missing the skill on the defensive side that can create more offense for the Blues.
See, and that's where I would go the opposite way. I do think you're missing size. I do think that is something that they are lacking, and it goes back to the conversation we had, I guess it would have been 2 years ago now, when we went into the offseason and we had all these conversations about who are the defensemen that the Blues should target. And that was the year that they ended up re-signing Nick Leddy. And we talked about it. That was the Jamie Alexiak offseason, where I asked you, Alex, are they looking for size? Is that just what the profile is that they need? Or do they just need a good defenseman? Like, do they just need to go out there and get somebody that can play quality minutes for them, regardless of size, regardless of speed, regardless of player profile? And we came to the conclusion at that time that we thought they just needed to add size. So that was Jamie Alexiak in that scenario. I think they still need that. I think when you look at the teams that are still playing today and you look at the way that they're winning defensively, most of them have that size, and the exceptions to the rule are the teams that have Cale Makar or Quinn Hughes. And sorry to break it to everybody, the Blues do not have that player currently on the roster.
You know what this reminds me a lot of? This is John Klingberg. We all remember Klingberg with the Dallas Stars. He was their top pair defenseman, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, you got to keep John Klingberg. Following that 2019-2020 season, he was playing with Miro Heiskanen, and they were a top pair for them, and they performed well in the postseason. And then Heiskanen took off. Klingberg took a step backwards. He finished out his signings with Dallas, and then he signed with the Anaheim Ducks, and nobody wanted to sign him. His career took a turn. What I would be very concerned about is Nikita Zadorov is doing this with Quinn Hughes, and the team that signs him for $5 million says, ooh, we're getting a top pair defenseman.
I think they're different, though, because Klingberg was a power play specialist. He was a guy that made most of his bones based upon what he was doing as a power play specialist. And I think those guys are just super risky bets, generally speaking. Like, we're seeing that with Torrey Krug, right? If they get into a different situation with a worse supporting cast, they're not going to put up the same number of points on the power play, and suddenly the guy that you signed isn't the guy that you're getting on the ice. Whereas Zadorov is, I'm getting him at 5-on-5.
But what I'm saying is you're bringing in Zadorov to be a defensive specialist. Like, that's what you're signing him for. So that would tell me that you're having a shutdown defensive pair, which is either going to be Zadorov and Parayko or Zadorov and Falk. And then what's your offensive pair on defense?
What if I just say I get a good defenseman, though? Like, Zadorov might...
I think you can say that for $3 million or $3.5 million, not for $5 million.
Totally fair, and that's why I'm going the trade route.
Yeah.
Like, this offseason, my ultimate point on this, to put a bow on it, I like the idea of Nikita Zadorov. And if I could get him, like you said, at his current contract, where I'm paying him $3.5 million per year, I would love to sign Nikita Zadorov on that type of a deal. And if you can go out there and trade or most likely, if you could trade Torrey Krug this offseason and he's open to the idea of being dealt, I'm okay with this. I would be totally fine with them essentially replacing Krug in the lineup with Zadorov. I think you improve there given what their relative skill sets are. If you can't do that, I don't think you can go to the open market and sign him. Instead, what I would try to do is go to your team, Alex, the Vegas Golden Knights. And I'm calling them and I'm saying, hey, okay, so on the open market, I can get Zadorov for $5 million per year. Or I can trade for Shea Theodore at $5 million on a one-year deal. I'd rather have Shea Theodore every day of the week and twice on Sundays.
Yep.
I would rather have Braden McNabb, who, he's 33 years old, but he's $2.8 million on an expiring deal. I'd rather have Nicholas Hague, who's 25 years old right now, on a deal that has an RFA status where you can extend him after next year, and right now he's going to cost $2.3 million next year. One of those guys, that's what I'm targeting this offseason instead, and those guys all have size. Instead of going to the open market via free agency and overpaying for a guy that I do think makes you better, but I'm not sure is going to end up being worth the contract that he's going to sign this offseason.
That's why I call this, and BK stole it from me, the offseason of the D, because I think there are going to be a lot of guys available via trade.
But you need to target them via T.
There's going to be a lot of guys available via trade. T-Bone, I'm going to talk to you now because that's really uncomfortable.
What the hell is that?
I don't know. He's using letters. It's like Sesame Street right now. I think when you talk about Shea Theodore, and I mean, we don't know. Maybe it could be Braden McNabb. Maybe it could be a Nicholas Hague from Vegas. But Toronto, if they decide to move a Morgan Riley, Ottawa, if they decide to move either Thomas Chabot or Jacob Chychrun, as much as I do like the physical prowess that Nikita Zadorov provides, I just believe your best situation for the Blues is to find an ideal partner for Colton Parayko who can be a 22, 23, 24-minute a night defenseman and move Nick Leddy down to play with Justin Falk. And then you've got guys that can play in both the offensive and defensive zone on two different pairings. You got another slang for me?
It's the offseason of the D via the T. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm VK. Coming up next, some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN.
BK, I've got another four-leg hockey parlay for you because you know me with my Circa Sports Illinois app. Every chance I get, I'm putting together a big parlay because I want to bring in the most money possible. And I've done the research. I've looked around. I've looked at DraftKings and at FanDuel. I've got the FanDuel parlay, same parlay pulled up right now, that if I bet the Carolina Hurricanes to win the game, the Canucks to win the game, the Bruins to win the game, and the Dallas Stars to win the game, those four games, straight up money line picks, at FanDuel, I would win $150 betting $10. On Circa Sports Illinois, I win $180 betting $10. That's the difference.
That's what you got to do. Go over to the Circa Sports app. They recommend shop around. Go ahead and take their line. See if they can beat them at FanDuel, at DraftKings, etc. They believe that they will give you the best opportunity to win the most money possible. It's all available for you right now at your fingertips. The Circa Sports book in Las Vegas is the biggest in Vegas, and now they have the Circa Sports app in the state of Illinois. So download that today. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Hendricks here, the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals fell to the Angels last night 7-2, but they took 2 of 3 from L.A. They are off today before coming back home to start a 3-game set with the Boston Red Sox tomorrow. 7:15 will be first pitch, and Kyle Gibson will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
All right, so the NFL schedule is out. We finally got word on who's going to play who and where and when.
I don't know about you guys, but
Yesterday.
I slept well last night when that came out.
It was good to see. It was good to see. I will say, seems like week one, some good matchups. Legitimately intriguing matchups. We're going to start out, Alex. We knew this. Thursday night, NBC, 7:20 start. Chiefs will raise the banner against the Baltimore Ravens
I don't think I'm gonna
opening
watch.
night.
Yeah, I'm going to be unavailable that night. Not a big deal, though.
Chiefs on the Circa Sportsbook open up as a 3-point favorite in that one. Feels a little low to me. Friday night in Brazil, you're going to have the Packers against the Eagles. I apologize to all the families out there. Thursday night and Friday night in the opening weekend of the NFL season, you're going to have games. And then Saturday, of course, full slate of college football. And then on Sunday,
My wife is going to hate me this first week.
some intriguing games on Sunday as well. Alex, we got the Texans against the Colts. Which should be a little bit of fun. Oh, you don't like that?
No, I don't like the Colts matchup. Give me more.
Okay. We got the Cowboys against the Browns. 3:25 Fox game there.
That one's crap, too.
Rams against the Lions as the Sunday night football game.
If the Rams don't look incompetent, that'll be fun.
And the Jets
won't.
against the 49ers on Monday night of the first week of the NFL season. Aaron Rodgers making his return to the field a year after tearing his Achilles on the opening night game for the Jets.
Let's hope he doesn't tear it during one of the preseason games, but that's the one I'm locked into. That will be the one that will be... Detroit and L.A. will be good as long as L.A. can live up to what they've been in the past. But that's going to be the one that I think everybody's going to be focused in on with Aaron Rodgers in the first week, and you're going up against the runner-up for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Saturday one in Brazil because... Friday, yeah. Because Jordan Love, look, BK's all in on Jordan Love. I'm still a little skeptical. And you got Philadelphia, who just feels like they're one more bad season away from just cleaning house and firing everybody. I'm intrigued to see what Jalen Hurts looks like, see what adjustments that the Philadelphia Eagles made. They made some nice additions in the draft on the defensive end of the ball. You know, I'm curious to know if Jordan Love looks like the guy that BK's been telling me he is. So that's the one that's got my attention early on in the season.
Yeah,
I'm still out on that.
That's a great one. I love Rams-Lions. I love that as an early season matchup. You know that you're, fingers crossed, and Matt Stafford should be healthy at that point. Now, he's going to miss like 4 games next year. We know that. It's just what happens with Matt Stafford at this point in this career.
Whoa. We didn't miss a game last year.
You got him returning to Detroit. There's storylines there. Jared Goff getting this mega deal after being set aside by the LA Rams. There's some great storylines in that one between those two teams. So I'm looking forward to that on Sunday.
If only the Rams are going to be a good team. Lose Aaron Donald, it's going to be trash out there.
I've got the teams that have the most primetime games this year. You ready for this?
Carolina Panthers.
They have 0.
I know, I saw that.
They
I love
literally
that.
have 0 primetime games.
And honestly, smart by football.
100%.
There is nothing worth watching about that team.
A year
The other
removed
teams
from the number 1 pick.
To Alex's point on Indianapolis not having a lot of excitement for them, they have 1.
Yeah.
They have 1 primetime game this year, the Indianapolis Colts do. I think that's a mistake, honestly, by the NFL. They're going to be more exciting than people are giving
I
them
think
credit
that
for.
the next year they can get him, but they got to prove it first. If Anthony Richardson gets hurt again, because that's the style he plays, well, then there's no intrigue to that team.
Other teams that have 1 primetime game, New England, Arizona, Tennessee.
Makes sense.
Feels about right.
Yeah, smart.
Teams with the most primetime games this year.
Kansas City.
6. No.
Wow.
Technically, they do if you include the Netflix.
You're probably they're probably just sick of
Christmas
all the
Day game,
antics,
but
you know.
It's not.
They
it's
play
not
like every day of the week, which is insane.
It's absurd. Down the stretch, their schedules. Absolute
Can
insanity.
we try and guess? Because I haven't seen the ones that. Can we try and guess these?
There's 3 teams that have 6 primetime games this year.
Okay.
San Fran.
That is 1.
Detroit.
Nope. They have 5.
Houston.
Nope. They have 4.
Wow. Those are the
You know what's sad is I saw the list and I can't remember the
Baltimore.
other 2.
Nope. They have
Cincinnati.
5. Yeah, 5.
Cincinnati.
No.
Wow. Okay.
Dude, think market size.
New York or Dallas.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't it Jets?
The Giants?
The other one?
Or the Jets, yeah.
Jets,
Giants.
49ers, Cowboys are the 3 teams that have 6 primetime games this year. They lead the NFL. Again, Kansas City technically has 5, but that is not including the Netflix Christmas Day game, in which they will not be technically a primetime matchup, but it's a primetime game.
They'll probably get flexed as the year goes on.
Buffalo, Green Bay, Detroit, Cincinnati, Baltimore, in other words, every team that Alex just mentioned.
Yeah, and the 5s.
Philly, Miami, and the Rams, they all have 5 primetime games this year. I think the NFL did a much better job this season with the scheduling in terms of what they're going to be able to get best teams being on primetime as long as everybody stays healthy, which never happens. All right, here's something else for you. People that are betting right now, if you're looking at like the over-under win totals, right? One of the things that I like to look at after a schedule release, because we knew who everybody was going to be playing. This has been announced since the end of last season, like December 31st, or I guess whatever, just January 4th, whatever it was. We knew who was playing who. This was just about when they will be played and at what times they will be played, like what days of the week and what weeks of the season. Rest difference. This is something to really keep in mind because rest is a huge deal in the NFL. The team with the biggest margin in terms of the worst rest difference, it's the 49ers this year.
So don't draft any 49ers in fantasy football.
The 49ers have a really difficult schedule this year when it comes to rest. It's one of the worst that we've seen in the last 20 years. Only the 2012 Eagles and the 2005 Chargers had less rest relative to their opponents in any individual season. Other teams to watch out for in this regard: the Colts, the Broncos, and the Seahawks. They all have very difficult schedules when it comes to what they are getting versus their opponents for rest breakdowns. You guys ready for the opposite side of this? These are teams that you should be looking at potential overs on.
I hope they did the Panthers a favor.
Most rest compared to their opponents this season. The Ravens, who have more rest compared to their opponents this season than any team has in their schedule since 2002. Why are we continuing to give the Baltimore Ravens all of the breaks?
Because the face of the NFL, the actual face, not Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, has to be healthy.
I'm so annoyed with this.
Of course you are.
So annoyed
Frankly,
with it.
Cincinnati should, because Joe Burrow can't make it through a season.
Guess who number 2 is on this list?
Houston. No, Detroit.
No and no.
Damn.
The Patriots.
What?
Are you kidding me with this, NFL?
They need as many breaks.
Are you kidding
That's
me?
true. For how bad they're going to be.
Yeah, I'm shocked they just didn't go, man, these 5 teams are going to suck here. Have as much rest as you want.
Yeah, give the good rest to the good teams. Take it away from these
the other
crap teams
that have positive rest differentials. The Vikings and the Eagles. So the Ravens, Patriots, Vikings, and Eagles, a lot of rest compared to their opponents this upcoming season. I did have one other thing that I wanted to get with you guys as we go through the NFL schedule released from yesterday. The Texans' schedule this year, Alex, this is your squad.
Yeah, I was looking at this.
Week 16 at Kansas City on a Saturday. Week 17 against Baltimore on Christmas Day, which is a Wednesday. So they'll play Saturday at Kansas City and then at home the following week on a Wednesday. So you're getting Sunday, Monday, Tuesday fully off, and then Wednesday playing a football game against one of the best teams in the AFC. Those 2 weeks could ultimately determine the number 1 seed in the AFC and could determine the MVP. And you're going to have one of the 2 teams playing on that game against Baltimore on Christmas Day on 3 days of rest.
Yeah.
The NFL screwed the pooch there. They absolutely screwed that up. I like having those games late in the season. You can't do them back-to-back like that with that little rest in between.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at their schedule yesterday, and it legitimately looks like they might have 7 or 8 losses. Which, I mean, I'm optimistic about Houston. I love Houston, but I think they gave them a tough schedule. Those final 3 weeks, I don't know if they win any of those games. It was Kansas City, it was Baltimore, and then wasn't it
Tennessee at the end.
Tennessee, okay.
But they have Miami before Kansas City.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. So it was 3 of those last 4.
They also don't have their bye week until week 14.
Yeah, they have
13 straight games bye week. Miami, Kansas City, Baltimore. And they've got Sunday, Saturday, Wednesday in terms of the schedule.
They screwed it in the sense of you might be to the point where that gauntlet that you put it through at the end, it's exciting, but you might keep CJ Stroud out of the playoffs, which, who cares? It's all about money and the market size. But I think when you got a hot young star like that, and maybe they impress us all, but looking at Detroit's schedule, because that's my other favorite team right now, That's an ideal one. Like, they look like they could lose maybe 2 games, whereas Houston, they might win 9, and that'll be it.
The Chiefs also have a weird finish to the schedule as well, where they go Sunday against Cleveland, and then Saturday against Houston, and then that Wednesday primetime game, quote unquote, against Pittsburgh at noon on Netflix for the Wednesday Christmas special. So they're going to play in the course of 11 days. 3 football games.
Which is insane.
That's just, I cannot believe the NFL is doing this for some of their marquee franchises and marquee quarterbacks. The odds of somebody significant getting hurt in that stretch of games down the stretch, there's only 1 week after that. It's so high, it's just not worth it, dude. Going into a playoffs, can you imagine if one of C.J. Stroud, Patrick Mahomes, or Lamar Jackson gets hurt down the stretch because of the way that they're scheduling those games?
Or any of their weapons. Like, imagine if, Kelsey gets hurt. And the Chiefs go into the playoffs without Travis Kelsey. Look, I still believe in Patrick Mahomes, but, dude, that's a lot of football. I'm shocked the players went for this, but maybe I'm old school. I hate seeing these football games scheduled on a Wednesday. I get it. They want to make their dough for Christmas Day. Man, come on. Let's do what is best for the players. Let's keep these guys healthy so I can see the best product in the playoffs. Because you're right. I'm very concerned about what's going to happen for whether you want the quarterbacks, the defensive players, the wide receivers, the guys that are actually getting hit, unlike the quarterbacks who get laid down to the ground. I want to see the best of the best in the playoffs, and I have serious concerns of injuries that could take place.
It's time to go to 2 bye weeks. I know the league has already talked about moving the schedule back a week because they want the 18-game schedule.
That's even the bigger problem.
You need to do that right now. If you're going to have these games played on Wednesdays, I understand they're playing the week prior on Saturday, so it's the same in terms of the rest, technically, as playing Sunday to Thursday. But, man, this is brutal, dude. It just throws everything off. I think it's a bad look for the league.
If you're going to go to 18 weeks, not only do you need those 2 byes, you need to eliminate these Wednesday games because you're you talk about screwing the pooch.
Or you put the bye before those games.
Maybe, but, you talk about screwing the pooch. If you overwork this to where these guys aren't available and these guys aren't going to be in the playoffs, then what's the excitement?
He's Alex, the Steve-Bone, I'm BK. Those are the NFL quick hitters for today. Questions and answers is coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. Get them in now or over on the YouTube chat, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. That's where the graveyard's at. All right, let's start with this from the 636. Guys, am I the only one that wants to know what Mo and ownership truly said to Arenado before he opted back into his contract? What future did they sell to him, and are they coming through with that?
Well, I don't know if they're coming through with it. Doesn't seem like Arenado's the happiest individual these days with the Cardinals.
Why do you say that?
A lot of bat chucking, a lot of outspoken comments. But I mean, if they sold him on putting together a competitive team, like offensively, I think you at least got it. Like you went out there and you signed Wilson Contreras the offseason, which added another bat. You have all of these pieces. It has not come through. And then pitching wise, I mean, I don't know if you could really sell him on Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson, but you got Sonny Gray. It's not so much about what they did. It's about the performance that's taking place on the field. And if Arenado's pissed about that, well, he should look in the mirror because he's a massive piece of this.
That's what I would say is like, I think they probably sold him on adding more veterans. That's probably what it came down to. And they've done that.
They brought in both of his best friends.
Yeah. I think they have done, I would assume, what he asked of them. Now it's time for him to do what they asked of him.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to produce. And at a certain point, it comes down to whether or not him and Goldschmidt are producing in the middle of the order. Yeah, there's other problems with this team, no doubt. We're going to get to the pitching here in just a little bit. It's got to get better. It's really been lacking over the last week or two in particular. But most of this season is going to come down to whether or not Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt are what we have come to know them to be. That's what they need.
Yeah, I think when they sold him on it, and that was, 2 years ago, it was, hey, we're going to go get another bat to help support you guys. And they did. They got Contreras. And look, he struggled early on. There was the whole, he's an outfielder, but he ended up being really good last year. Yeah. And the pitching fell apart on him, which, look, we could have kind of seen that one coming, but I don't think you saw it becoming as bad as it got. And you didn't see Waino falling off the table. And then it didn't matter what they said to him this year because he was under contract and he didn't opt out. And they did what they needed to do, man. They revamped this bullpen. I like a lot of the pieces they've got in the pen. They added a number one starter in Sonny Gray. And look, I get it. He's going through a little bit of a skid right now, but he's a legitimate number one starter. It's on him, man. Him and Goldie, they got to perform. It is as simple as that. If Goldie and Arenado go, the Cardinals will go.
From the 314, Alex, would you take the over or under 30.5 for goals by Jake Neighbors next season?
Oh, I'd take the under. I don't think he's going to be a 30-goal scorer because I don't think he's going to have a consistent line mate next year. I think you're going to see a lot of juggling around. I would take the over if it was 25.5. I think he's going to be somewhere between 26 and 29.
He, for what it's worth, this past season, there were 42 players in the NHL that scored at least 30 goals on the season. He will continue to need to be on that first unit on the power play if he's going to get there. And then he needs to be with a great center. And the only way that happens, in my opinion, is if he's on that top line.
I was just going to say, if you
require that.
If you promise me that 82 games Jake Neighbors is playing on the top line, then I would take the over, but I don't see that happening.
Can he be Brock Besser? Does he have that in his range of outcomes?
I don't know if he's got the shot that Brock Besser does. I think he could be.
Because Besser's first full season, he was 29 goals, 55 points.
Yeah.
And he then he was in the range that you're talking about, Alex. Yeah. For the next 5 years, he was somewhere between basically 20 and 25 goals. And then this past season, boom, broke out 40-goal season for the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what's in the future?
No, because I think Brock Besser's got a better shot than him. And I might be underestimating Jake Neighbors' shot, but I honestly think he's a lot more like Zach Hyman.
Sure.
And don't take it for the 54 goals that Zach Hyman's scoring right now. Go off of what he did the last 2 seasons with Edmonton. I think he's 27, 36 goals. He's putting together 70 to 80 points because that is more Jake Neighbors, where he only scores, not only, but he prolifically scores goals standing in front of the net. Besser's got a hell of a shot to where he can release it, and Neighbors might develop that, but I think the scouting report on Jake Neighbors was he's a net front presence guy.
All right, final question here from the 314. Guys, do you think there's any chance that the Chiefs will sit Patrick Mahomes for the Wednesday Netflix game on Christmas? I think no, because Netflix is paying $150 million to get those games, but we were just talking about this off air, and T-Bone brought up the point of hey, if you're locked in to your seating already, and you're putting your players at risk by putting them out there 3 times in a 10-day stretch, is it even worth it for you if you're one of those teams, the Ravens, the Texans, the Chiefs, and you've already locked up your spot? I don't know that it's worth it, but I think it's going to be what they're going to have to do, especially the Ravens and the Texans, because it'll be hard for them to have anything locked up at that point, I would assume, going against one another. Be a little different for the Chiefs, but I think the NFL is going to make sure those teams play their starters.
I think they're going to make them or try to make them, but if I'm the Chiefs, man, I got my stuff locked up. I don't care if you paid $150 million Netflix.
Yeah.
Because we got to be in the best position for a three-peat. And you know what's better for the league is if Patrick Mahomes is healthy chasing a three-peat in the playoffs than if he got hurt in that third game in 10 days.
And what I could see happening is he starts the game, but it'll be some type of rogue injury that takes place, and by the second quarter, he's on the bench.
Oh, what an injury report.
With Alex and T-Bone on
Way to go,
BK.
NFL.
Coming up next, the Cardinals pitching is starting to show some signs of cracking. Is it concerning to us here in this room? Is it concerning to you guys? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends at Rhino Shield. When it comes to the exterior of your home, it's time to give it a brand new look. If you've been in your house for a long time and the paint is starting to fade away, whether it's water damage, it's rusting off, it's chipping off, maybe the sun has deteriorated it, you need to use Rhino Shield, because what they use, the product that they use, is a 2 to 3 coating ceramic product that sticks 8 to 10 times thicker than what you're going to get at any paint over the store at a hardware place. I did this 3 years ago. We purchased our home, and it was already looking worn down. The people prior didn't take good care of it. The paint was chipping off. Darren and his team came out in the weekend. They had it looking brand new, and it looks like it was just painted 3 years later. And whatever type of siding you have, aluminum, asbestos, block, brick, hardy, stucco, they can take care of all of it. Also do roofing. They can do decks. You check out Rhino Shield and update the exterior of your home. 877-25-RHINO. Tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. 877-25RHINO.com.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK. So yesterday, Brad Thompson joined the Fast Lane, and they were talking about what the Cardinals should do with that number 5 spot in the rotation, Alex. And my hope is they go out there and sign Rich Hill. I'm openly campaigning at this point for Rich Hill to be a part of the Cardinals rotation. Apparently, he's coaching his
didn't you just call out his his kids' little league team and say, like, you guys aren't good enough? Rich Hill needs to be a Cardinal?
We need to bring that team here to St. Louis, and he can coach them while he's a member of the Cardinals rotation. He can pitch once a week, only do home games. Like, we can find a way to make this work.
Doug Gottlieb now?
Was it Roger Clemens who only started home games in Houston? I think that was his arrangement that he had with the Astros at the end of his career.
Just when you're Roger Clemens, you can do that. Are we saying Rich Hill is Roger Clemens?
Essentially, yes.
For the Cardinals. I guess for the Cardinals right now, anybody's Roger Clemens. That's not Matthew Liberatore.
The reason I bring that up is because I want Rich Hill to be their number 5 starter. Brad Thompson had a different answer to their current situation in the rotation.
No, I think that you give Libby a little bit of a run, and you just realize that you're probably going to try to piggyback those games together, and I think that those can be very effective ones. But I do think that he's the answer for the right now, and my hope is for this ball club, if there continues to be a question in that spot, either someone emerges internally within the organization, or you're in a position that you're at a point at the deadline where you could actually make a move to bolster a spot like that. Your offense is going to have to win days like that. When you're on your spot starter or the guy that's transitioning back into the rotation, those are the days where you got to put up some runs.
We can't do that. We're not going to be buyers.
I am so frustrated with the way that the Cardinals are handling this spot at the rotation, man.
Why, man? Didn't you see Libby pitch against the White Sox?
I understand why they're doing this. I really do. It's because of the lack of options. Like, people will go down and point to Sim Robersa. According to the stuff that I've read about Sim Robersa, he doesn't have a fastball that will play in the major leagues. And I'm not somebody that will tell you, like, you have to throw 95, but it would be helpful if you could throw, like, 93, and he doesn't. So it's Drew Rom 2.0. Remember that experience last year? How we all wanted to improve from that?
Yeah, Gersh told me he was.
Well, he didn't say specifically about Drew Rom.
He kind of did, where he said, like, oh, we had guys that weren't big leaguers here last year, but then he also told me he was our never mind.
He did. He essentially told us that.
So you have Matthew Liberatore as that rotation. He's got that spot in the rotation locked down, and they have announced, by the way, that he will make the next start in that spot in the rotation. I understand how you get there based upon your lack of options in the minor leagues. Why can other teams around the major leagues make trades and you can't? Why are the Cardinals ineligible?
Like who? Who's made a trade?
The Padres made a trade. Who was it that just made another deal? It was a reliever that just got dealt the other day. I don't know. But just
Cubs, wasn't it?
The Cardinals claimed a guy off of waivers.
Oakland just made a trade today. Think about that. Oakland.
I'm not telling you got to go get the next version of Dylan Cease. Like, you don't have to go trade for the next version of Pablo Lopez. Although all of these guys seemingly would be helping you right now, and they were available, and you opted against making the moves. But whatever. There's got to be somebody that's out there. I don't know who it is. But when the Milwaukee Brewers were hemorrhaging offense, they had no ability to hit the baseball a couple of years ago. They made a trade in mid-May, right around this time, because the Tampa Bay Rays were getting ready to call up a young superstar shortstop. Man, the Rays probably wish they didn't make this deal now, with Wander Franco coming up to the big leagues. And they traded Willy Adames to the Brewers, and the Brewers were able to get a guy that for the next 3 or 4 years will be their starting shortstop. Yeah. The Cardinals don't need to make that caliber of a deal. Can you go get somebody that can consistently give you 5 strong innings? Go get whoever the version is on the trade market right now of what you're getting out of one of Kyle Gibson or Lance Lynn. Can you get that?
But what track record would give you the hope that they could do that? Last year they were hemorrhaging starts, and they just kept saying, well, we'll be fine. They don't do this.
They need to go sign their version of, like, this year. What was your guy's name? LeBlanc?
Oh, Wade LeBlanc. He's probably available.
They really need that right now. Like, seriously, because the problem with the way that they're operating currently, okay, so you have Matthew Liberatore as your starter. But what about the days when Matthew Liberatore is not starting? What happens in those days now? Because he's not available in your bullpen. Well, now you're only getting, let's call it 3, maybe in a strong week, 4 days a week where you have your back-end relievers available to you. And you're using all 3 of them, by the way, in every single one of those opportunities.
Aren't they getting Middleton back?
Eventually, like 2 weeks from now,
probably. I thought he was coming back this homestand.
No, he's got to go out on a rehab assignment, man.
I thought he was already out on a rehab assignment.
The way that they were describing it last night is they're going to have a rehab assignment, and he's got to go down there, and then he's got to do a back-to-back, and then he's got to do an up-down. Like, there's a lot of steps that are required. He essentially has 0 spring training.
I feel a setback coming.
So you're going to have like 2 weeks until you get that guy back. But in the meantime, John King is a high-leverage reliever for you right now. on days in which Jojo Romero is not available. That's not acceptable. That is not an okay guy for you to have. He should, like, on a really good team, he's probably not a part of your roster. On this team, he's a high-leverage reliever. That's what happens when Matthew Liberatore is starting games for you. So I'm not telling you go out there and make this blockbuster deal. Can you do something? Do something that will bolster this rotation to allow your bullpen to function. Because over the next 2 weeks, when you're going up against really good teams, you're going to need a solid bullpen to be able to lock these games down when one of or two of your high-leverage relievers are unavailable. They're putting themselves in a really difficult spot. It is an incredibly narrow, it's a difficult needle to thread right now with the way that they're operating. And they put themselves in this position, man. I mean, it's frustrating.
BT said it there. And essentially, to me, it's waving the white flag. BT said, you're going to have to win with offense. You haven't been able to win with offense all but one game against the Angels, and it was because the Angels essentially gifted that to you. You don't have the DNA right now to win with offense. You have to win with good pitching, lights out bullpen, and defense. And if your starters are starting to struggle, if you're taking one of your shutdown guys out of the bullpen to use in your rotation, you are watching this Jenga tower fall apart from one piece that you're pulling. You're pulling one piece out, and this whole thing is collapsing on you because your offense isn't hitting. If your offense was doing the damage that we've been talking about, you could withstand this. But you can't because they are not hitting, and they have not shown signs of doing it.
And the other problem is that the rest of the rotation is now starting to normalize, as we talked about kind of in the open of, okay, well, we just saw Lance Lynn barely get through 5 innings. That was a hell of a bar fight last night that he got himself into. And look, it was a little bit of bad luck in the first inning. Like, I'm not going to lie. It wasn't like he got hit around super hard in that first inning. It was some bad luck. But, hey, man, he can only go 5. And, you know, Kyle Gibson's going to start to normalize at some point as well. Sonny Gray started to normalize where it was a fight to get through 6 the other night. Like, it's going to be very tough to ask these guys consistently, hey, because we're shortening our bullpen because Libby's not stretched out, you have to go 6. You have to go 6. And sometimes doing that doesn't give you a chance to win. Like, honestly, Lynn going 5 last night probably was not their best chance to win that baseball game. Now, it ended up to where they weren't going to come back and win because they only scored 2 runs anyways. But Lynn clearly did not have his best stuff, and they had to gut him through 5 because they couldn't handle it otherwise in their bullpen. So, and the other problem for me with this is...
Imagine if Michaelis goes like 5 innings on Saturday. Because Sunday you've got Liberatore starting.
Yeah.
Like what?
Wow, you're probably telling them you're not going 5.
You play games Monday through Wednesday. So if you don't get depth out of Michaelis on Saturday, you will set your bullpen up to fail on Sunday because you have Liberatore on the mound on that day. You better get like 7 out of Sonny Gray on Monday to be able to give your relievers a night off, and then hopefully you can just go to a couple of your high-leverage guys to finish out that game. You're in a really difficult spot right now if you're Ollie Marmol. Like, he's being handed this poo-poo platter, and he's trying to make it work. They're not setting him up for success. The front office is failing. They're just flailing in the wind once again this season. And it's because of decisions like this. If Sim Robersay does not give you the best opportunity to win, so be it. Your alternative is to rob Peter to pay Paul. And now, like, because of Liberatore starting on Sunday, which I don't know for sure that he does give me the best chance to win there. Like, I'm not positive of that at all because he can't get right-handed hitters out right now. They're batting almost 400 against him so far this season.
It's pretty good.
So I'm doing that and then losing my ability to use him against the big-time left-handed bats that will be available for these opponents on other days. I think this is silly. I think they are, by their own choice, making the team worse over the course of the next week in a week that could ultimately sink or swim the season.
And when people always blame Mo at the end of this season, whether you believe this team has a shot or not, they're still in the conversation. And if they sit on their hands for the next month and watch this thing implode, that's where you point the finger at the front office.
And I think if we were to grade Mo's offseason right now, like if we did it right now, look, he probably gets a B for the major league signings or an A. Dude, he gets an F on the development or the depth behind this because look at the minor league. They're telling you right now we have no depth. And another injury comes, dude, they're screwed.
Oh, yeah, you're
They
done.
are done if another injury happens to pop up. Like if
imagine
who starts
trying
tomorrow?
to cover
Gibson.
multiple games.
If you lose Lynn or Gibson,
Unbelievable.
you're screwed.
If Gibson got hurt tomorrow, they're done. The season is over. And I think it's already kind of over. It is officially over if they suffer another injury. And the thing with Liberatore that I have a tough time with is, look, I think they need to just admit, if they're going to go with him, they need to admit he's a starter and start building him up and start doing it rapidly, start doing it quickly. The problem is I think it's a false pretense to say, okay, well, we're going to make him a starter again and get 5 innings out of him, because he can't get righties out. Like, if he can't get right-handed hitters out, everybody's going to load up their lineup with righties, and he's not going to go 5 innings because you're not going to have a chance to win that baseball game. If you're going to stick with Libby,
929 against him this year.
If you're going to stick with Libby, you've got to have an opener and then have Libby eat a bunch of innings in between. Like, they should start. Nobody's going to like this. They should start Kyle Leahy on a day when Liberatore is scheduled as the quote-unquote starter. Use Leahy as an opener so you can get some lefties into that lineup and split up some righties, and then bring Liberatore in for the bulk of the innings after an inning or two.
Every year of his major league career, 22, 23, 24, and this is over the course of 350 at-bats, 400 plate appearances now. This is no longer a small sample size. Every single season, right-handed hitters have hit at least 300 against Matthew Liberatore. And every single season, they've had a slugging percentage of at least 485. In his career at the big league level, again, this is over the course of 400 plate appearances, which is basically a full season of plate appearances for a major league hitter. 310 batting average against, 385 on base percentage, and a slugging percentage of 530. That's a 915 OPS against. 915. Let me look this up. I bet you last year there were like 5 players, maybe, in all of Major League Baseball that were qualified that had an OPS better than that. That's what you're getting right now out of Matthew Liberatore. Opposing hitters become one of the 5 or 6 best hitters in Major League Baseball. So, yeah, last year, Shohei Ohtani, Corey Seager, Ronald Acuna Jr., Matt Olson, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Yandy Diaz. That's the entire list of players that were this good against last year overall. That's what right-handers become on average against Matthew Liberatore in his major league career. Bryce Harper, for example, worse last season overall than right-handers are against Matthew Liberatore.
Oof.
That's unacceptable. And that's the guy that you're turning to right now as your number 5 starter, and you're saying he's our best option.
Gives us our best chance to win, man.
That's terrifying of what they believe that they have right now internally in their minor league system. That tells you everything you need to know about how they view their minor league depth.
If you could just stay patient, BK, Steven Matz is on the horizon.
Dude, he got shut down again. He's going to require multiple weeks to be able to get back up to his full, 80 pitches that he typically goes.
But we know that when Steven Matz comes back, you're going to get 5 solid starts.
It's not like the A's today traded for a guy that started 13 games last year for the Astros.
That's the almost first place.
Now, he hadn't started a game this year, so I don't want to be a total fraud. But last year, the A's acquired Brandon Bielak today, who last year made 13 starts, appeared in 15 games, and had a 3.83 ERA. This year, 10 games, 5.71 ERA, and was DFA'd.
A's are also 5.5 games out of first place.
Well, they're a better team.
They are a better team. They're a playoff team.
I know people, they hear the idea of Rich Hill, and he's become this character of like, hey, you don't have any other options. Go sign Rich Hill. He's
like
55. Yeah, sure. But the reason why you go sign a guy like that is essentially to just concede that day. Now, Rich Hill will give you a chance. He'll basically do his best impression of Lance Lynn. It'll look a little different. He's not going to strike a bunch of dudes out. He's going to pitch to contact. He's going to be fine. And he's going to give you like 5 innings, 4 earned runs against him, typically.
It'd be like what you had when you had Lester, Happ, and LeBlanc.
Yeah. He's going to give you a competitive outing. It's not going to look pretty, but it will be competitive on those days. And what that allows you to do is put Liberatore back into the bullpen where you now have him available for you on other days. And when Keenan Middleton returns, now you've got multiple options available to you on multiple days. So you look at the back end of your pen. On one day, you could go with JoJo, Kittredge, Helsley. The next day, you could go Liberatore, Keenan Middleton, Helsley. And now you can just kind of offset that every other day. And when you're winning, you can finish out those games. You feel pretty good about it. Right now, you don't have that opportunity because Liberatore is a part of your rotation. So that's where they're.
If you just look at their schedule, their basic. You've won. The only reason you're in this position and it's not worse right now is because of your bullpen being so incredible.
100%.
And the fact that you're taking the strength of this team and putting it towards your weakness and now making the best part of your team the weakness. I mean, that's
by the way, Liberatore is not a good starter.
No. It's essentially waving the white flag, saying like, oh, well, we're not going to win games because now we don't have our bullpen.
I wish you'd just be patient over there.
Coming up in 15 minutes, where does the blame lie for the Cardinals' lack of offensive production this season? Do you put more on Goldie and Arenado, or the other guys in the lineup? We'll get into that coming up in about 15 minutes. Coming up next, though, Jeremy Rutherford's Blues fan survey results are officially in. There's a few things that really stood out to me in this, Alex. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. So the Blues fan survey results are officially in, Alex. This comes from Jeremy Rutherford's piece over at The Athletic earlier today. You should go read the full thing. It's available for you right now. But I want to get into a few of the questions that I found to be really interesting in terms of the results, all right? So the first one available for us. Do you fully understand Doug Armstrong's vision for a retool? I would have assumed, Alex, like 70% of the responses said, yes, I understand what Doug Armstrong's trying to accomplish here. Instead, it's 53% no. And he had a follow-up on if you don't understand the vision, what are you unclear about? Now, there were specific answers available to them. I don't know. Like the answer is essentially, well, I don't know. Were you surprised at all that 53% of the responses to this said they're not fully understanding what Doug Armstrong is trying to accomplish, what his vision is for the retool?
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised by that. I mean, I can understand where the confusion comes in because people want answers. People want like definitive, like we expect to be out of this in 2 years. And I believe Doug Armstrong really hasn't presented a hard timeline other than when he said he'd like to be like the LA Kings. We've just assumed a 3-year retool, but we don't know what Doug Armstrong's timeline. He's very vague and keeps things close to the chest. But the reason that I don't feel like you should be surprised by it or you're uncertain with it, it's because that's how Doug Armstrong plays. Like Doug Armstrong has always been I'm not going to give you anything that you want. It's just we're retooling, we're leaning into the timeline that we have, and we're moving forward. So I was a little surprised by that.
It's interesting because I'm not surprised by that because I think there are a ton of questions for the St. Louis Blues before you can even picture them escaping the retool. It is, how do you find Colton Parayko's partner? Do you re-sign or trade Pavel Buchnevich? What do you do with a Jordan Kyrou? How do you get out of some of these bad contracts if it's not just let these contracts fall off of the books?
I still think one of the questions is coaching too.
Yeah, if you don't feel like Bannister's the guy, absolutely. Like, it's not like those are like small questions. You know, this isn't like finding your fourth line winger. These are significant questions, and this maybe it's just because I have felt like this is going to be longer than what they have said. Like the 3 years, I think is a number that a lot of people kind of associate as last year was year one. We're 2 years away. I think this is like a 5-year thing, and to me, it's because there are those questions of on the defense of how do you get out of those contracts. You're 3 years away from those just falling off of the books. So I'm actually not surprised by the fact that over 50% of people said no, they don't understand this rebuild.
So I think the thing that is very difficult for me personally is trying to figure out where they're going to place expectations going into next year. We've talked about it. We have a divide on this show, like between Alex on one side and then me and T-Bone on another. I think there's the offseason will dictate this for sure. I think there's a pretty decent chance that they will be worse this upcoming season than they were last year. And that's not because I think they're like heading in the wrong direction or anything, right? I don't think this is that. I think they're going to go with a lot of young guys this year.
Like a learning year.
Yeah, I think you're going to see Dvorsky getting a lot of the opportunities as your second-line center, and they're just going to let him go out there and learn on the job. Kind of similar to what we saw last year, what we should have seen more of, honestly, in my opinion, last year with Bolduc, where there were games where Bolduc, I think overall, it was a success. I think what you saw from him, you got to feel pretty good about what he's going to be down the road. But inside of that learning experience were moments where he lost you games. Like just flat out him being on the ice, and I think it's why he got sad in some of those big games down the stretch. Him being out there made you a worse team because of some of the decisions that he made, some of the learning moments that he had at the NHL level. And those are going to make you better down the road. Him having those moments, he will hopefully learn from them and not make those same mistakes down the road. Dvorsky's going to have some of that this year. You're going to have some of that defensively if you continue going with some of your younger defensemen that are out there. So for me, that's where it's going to get really interesting. I think after next season, if he has this exact same question, if it goes the way me and T-Bone think, I think you'll have even more people that say no, they do not understand Doug Armstrong's vision because it took a step back instead of a step forward in 2024. So that to me is going to be a really interesting thing. How do they guard against that? How do they explain that publicly if the team does take a step back this upcoming year?
And I personally know if you take a step back and you do what you guys are saying, I don't know if you need to explain that. If Dvorsky's getting playing time, if Bolduc's getting top 6 minutes, and Neighbors and Dean, I don't think you need to explain it. I think the proof is in the pudding where, hey, we're playing these young guys that you want.
I agree with that statement, but I just know how fans think.
Absolutely.
Like, this is what they saw with Jordan Walker. Like, Jordan Walker last year has based on his, like, you look at the back of his baseball card, it was a good season. But everybody expects that linear improvement. And I think they expect that from the franchise as a whole.
But I think this on the text line, Alex, and I want to get there with you. I want to get your thoughts on this because we've got a number of people that say something to the effect of, guys, Kapanen and Verano were so bad it just can't get worse. Verano played 20 games for you this year.
Yeah, that's fair.
Imagine that over the course of 82.
Those 20 games were bad.
They were horrible. But
I don't know if Bolduc's that bad.
He was a -7, and I do think there's going to be times where Bolduc looks that bad. Not overall. I don't think he's going to have the lack of effort that you saw from Verano.
And that's where I would disagree, because I think Verano just was focused on one area of the game and one area only. Bolduc made it very apparent that he's emphasizing
100%.
Other portions of the game.
I also think when you have multiple of these young guys, kind of like the Cardinals with their lineup, where Ollie said the other day, he was like, listen, there's only so many ways that I can construct the lineup because of all of the left-handed hitters that we have. Next year, you're going to get to a place where it can't be veteran, young guy. Because you're going to have more than 4 young guys in the lineup. You can't just filter one young guy on every line. You're going to have lines probably at some point next year where it's 2 or 3 young guys on that line, and that will get ugly. There will be times where they're just completely out of the position that they need to be in, and suddenly the other team's going the other direction. It's a breakaway, and it's because young guys screwed up. And that's just got to be okay. That's got to be something that we live with. And so to answer the question of, like, am I confused by, do I understand what Doug Armstrong's vision is for the retool? I think I do. And I think it could lead to bad results this upcoming year or worse results this upcoming year. But when or if that happens, I think it will result in more people saying that they don't understand it, even though I think it actually leans more towards the I get it even more.
And that's where,
go down that path.
And that's where the divide in show is, because in this scenario, I would be more confused if they do what you guys are expecting them to do. I'm expecting them to make some type of move this offseason, whether it's upgrading and providing more depth to your forward group that are better than Kapanen and Verana with a veteran player, or fixing your defense. I'm expecting one of those two things, and because you do have players that are very competitive and you've got Jordan Binnington with Joel Hofer, that's where I view it as, okay, this would feel more like a season of taking a step in the other direction. But if they do what you guys are saying and there are 0 moves that take place this offseason, then that's where the confusion would start to come in for me.
All right, we do have a couple other things that I want to get to from this survey. These two are connected. He asked, should the Blues re-sign Pavel Buchnevich? It was literally 50-50. Literally 50-50 on either side of yes, trade him or re-sign him. The other question that was asked, should the Blues trade Jordan Kyrou? Just very simply. 52% said no. 47% said yes. So it was basically 50-50 there as well. The fan base appears to be completely divided on trading Kyrou and trading or extending Pavel Buchnevich. Alex, how do you feel about that? What's your reaction when you see those numbers that are basically right down the middle?
That I agree with the fans. I'm 50-50 on both sides of these. I don't think you should give more than 5 years to Pavel Buchnevich, because I think any more than that, you're putting yourself in another bad situation for when you want to be competitive. But I also view this as, you got 1 more year to figure out what you want to do with Jordan Kyrou, and now might be the time to pounce if teams are aggressive about it to see if they can get the best out of him before his no-trade kicks in. I really think that with those two big pillars of the season, you are at a crossroads right now if you're Doug Armstrong, to where this retool can go good or it can go really bad really fast. And it's going to come down to the decisions you make on both of those two players.
Yeah, I'm not shocked that this was 50-50, because I think for Kyrou, a lot of fans get frustrated with the inconsistency. And I don't think we talk enough about Buch's inconsistency. He was very inconsistent this season. And look, part of that may have been the fact that they tried to, like, make him a center and jam that into a round hole. But I understand the frustration. Like, I would not re-sign Pavel Buchnevich. I just don't think we talked about this yesterday, BK. I don't think he's an elite winger. And I'm not giving him a long-term contract for what he's going to want if he's not an elite winger. So I would trade him this offseason, gain some assets. And the reason I would be more in favor of keeping Kyrou is because I think you can live with one guy that's inconsistent if he scores 30 goals. And he slots perfectly on that second line. But I understand the fans' frustration, because there are nights it's tough to watch Jordan Kyrou.
I am 50-50 on the Buchnevich thing. I think I am now at a place where I do not want them to trade Kyrou. I had like a week of weakness for myself where I was like, maybe you got to trade
Even
that.
if Kachuk's standing in front of you?
No, that's the difference.
That's where I think the difference is. You can't just say, would you trade Kyrou?
Sure.
There's got to be like, would
but
you?
I think there's a decent amount of the fan base right now that just wants him gone.
And see,
just get rid of him.
And that's crazy. That's crazy talk. I think you have to present this as, would you trade Jordan Kyrou for another top 6 winger?
And that's what I would be willing to do. If I'm feeling like I'm legitimately upgrading my roster by trading Jordan Kyrou, it's the same thing that I said about trading Nolan Gorman. Right? In the offseason, if you're going to trade Nolan Gorman and get an ace, sure, I'm willing to listen to that conversation. If you're willing to trade Nootbaar or Donovan and I'm getting a legitimate ace, or you're packaging up these players for like Juan Soto, young version of Juan Soto, sure, yeah, I'm willing to talk about these types of things. But I'm not just getting rid of stuff. I'm not just letting Jordan Kyrou go to another team and in return getting more lottery ticket prospects. That doesn't help me. It doesn't give me a spot in my lineup filled out in pin for the next 8 years. And for all of the faults that exist with Jordan Kyrou's game, you're going to need somebody to score 30 goals for you whenever you're good again. Jordan Kyrou does that, man. I can make up for his lack of other stuff with players that I have on his line with him. I do believe that. I think a really good team needs a player like Jordan Kyrou on it. The problem is, where it gets difficult is if a Brady Tkachuk becomes available. Well, yeah, I'm going to have to give up something that I like, that other teams value, and that might be Jordan Kyrou. That might be Pavel Buchnevich. And that's where you get to the place of, okay, sure, I'm willing to listen to discussions there. Buch is tougher because he's 29, and you have to extend him. And it's probably going to be for 6+ years, and it's probably going to be for more than $8 million per season. Do you do that? I don't know. Genuinely, I think this is the hardest decision that Doug Armstrong has had to make.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the other decisions are mostly like 70% at a minimum lean one way over the other. I thought it was 70% keep Alex Pietrangelo, for example, and they decided to go the other.
I thought it was 100% keep Alex Pietrangelo.
We were all thinking it.
Yeah.
But this one, I think, is really difficult. And I think this will be the pivot point for the Blues retool.
This is the
crossroad. If they get this thing wrong with Pavel Buchnevich, it could set them back in a serious way, either by trading him for a return that doesn't help you or by keeping him and him not becoming the player they think he is. Either way could backfire, and it's a legit 50-50 proposition either way. So I'm with the Blues fans on this one. I feel that way as well.
Yeah.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we're going to dive into the junk drawer. I think Rams haters will enjoy the audio that we're going to hear coming up in about 15 minutes or so. I do not think it's something that T-Bone will enjoy. We'll get into that coming up in just a little bit. But coming up next, where does the blame lie? If you were making a blame pie, Alex, and you were spreading up the percentages of who deserves more,
About to serve this.
is it with Arenado and Goldie or the other players in the lineup for the lack of production that we've seen so far this year? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Tara Henderson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals fell to the LA Angels yesterday 7-2. They are off today before getting back in action tomorrow when they start a 3-game set with the Boston Red Sox. Kyle Gibson will be on the mound for St. Louis tomorrow night. First pitch at 7:15. The Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
You can't just count on 2 players in the lineup to be the whole team, to me.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody else has to be held accountable to step up, even when things are going tough. You can't use it as an excuse. You're still the Cardinals organization. Like, you're not a different organization that's okay with losing. There has to be some type of fight, and we just haven't seen that with the Cardinals. And that's the most disappointing thing for me.
That was Xavier Scruggs on MLB Network earlier today talking about why he believes it's not just up to Arenado and Goldie to get this offense back on track. He's looking at guys like Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, Nolan Gorman, eventually Jordan Walker. He wants to see them step up in the absence of Goldie and Arenado doing so. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, Alex, I think that's fair. It's everybody. It's a group effort right now in terms of the suckage of this offense here in St. Louis.
Suckage.
Arenado, Donovan, Nootbaar, Goldie, Gorman. These guys are all under 700 right now in terms of their OPS.
Hashtag suckage.
That can't happen. You can't have all of those guys sucking offensively and expect to have any kind of success.
Man, we've had 2 T-shirts today. The season of the D, hashtag suckage.
There you go.
Probably don't do them on the same T-shirt.
So sure, yeah. Xavier Scruggs, totally agree. The other players need to step up. Yeah. They're not completely blameless in this regard. But if I was to do the blame pie, right, we're putting our percentages of Goldie and Arenado, everybody else. Goldie and Arenado for me is like 75% of the blame for this offense being what it is right now. Because I've seen times in the past where guys around them are struggling, and the Cardinals offense still produces because they've got MVP caliber performances from the 2 guys that are paid $60 million to perform. These other guys are young. They're paid $1 million, $2 million, $5 million bucks. They're expected to go out there and be accent pieces around the middle of the order that we paid $60 million to produce. Yeah, I understand. It's a lot of expectations. That's what the money's for, man. That's what the money is for. They paid you because you are expected to produce at a certain level. And right now, Nolan Arenado is batting .260 this year. That's fine. You can live with that with a .370 slugging percentage. That is very much not fine. You cannot live with that at all. Paul Goldschmidt is batting .205. He's getting on base less than 30% of the time, and he finally has a slugging percentage at .300 for the season. Oh, no, by the way, he's striking out 33% of the time, and even when he's been hitting better lately, he's still striking out about 40% of the time over the last 2 weeks. So, Alex, I think 75-ish% of the blame for this offense being what it is right now, it goes to Goldie and Arenado, in my opinion.
I would go higher than that. I mean, I would go as close to 100% as I could without going to it, so like 90, 95%. Here's why. These 2 guys, if one of them is not performing and the other is, it takes pressure off of all of your other batters to come up with big plays because you know you've got one of those 2 big bats. When you take both of them out of the lineup in terms of the power, the ability to hit with runners in scoring position, to come away with the big-time hit for you, you know what that does? That puts pressure on every single player on this roster that doesn't have the experience that Goldschmidt and Arenado have to come up with the big plays. So guess what? They're doing more and trying to put more in because they need to, because your 2 leaders aren't providing it. If you take both of those guys out of the lineup and say, hey, Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman, Brendan Donovan, you are the teams that is carrying us to the promised land. Guess what you are? You're a rebuilding team because you're relying on young players to lead you. But you're not supposed to be doing that. So if Goldschmidt and Arenado aren't hitting, this is why I believe Jordan Walker's in the minors. It's why you're not seeing Nolan Gorman hit. It's why Brendan Donovan's been struggling. It's why Lars Nootbaar's been struggling because your 2 leaders aren't hitting. And then you lose Wilson Contreras. That's the 3rd bet you're relying on. So now these guys are relying on themselves, and frankly, it's not paying off right now. So I would put like 95% of the blame on them.
The other thing is these guys that we're talking about that are accent pieces, they're streaky. Nolan Gorman is a really streaky hitter. That's the expectation with him. We've seen this in the past. Lars Nootbaar, each of his seasons at the big league level, he starts out really slow. And it's really, if we could find a way to bottle up what Newt is post All-Star break and just get that for the entirety of the season, we'd be talking about an All-Star caliber player. Unfortunately, it takes him a while to get going. And I don't know why that is. I can't explain it. But each of the past couple of years, it's been that way for him. So I just kind of expect him to go through these ups and downs, the fits and starts offensively. The guy I'm surprised by how much he struggled so far this year offensively is Brendan Donovan. I didn't expect this out of him. He is typically a very consistent player. Yeah, he'll go through stretches where he's even better. But that on-base percentage is something that you can typically count on, where he gets on base 35, 36% of the time. And right now he's at a 310 on-base percentage on the season because the batting average just isn't there for him. So that's the guy that I'm surprised by. But, man, it all comes back to your point, Alex, if you're not having the big boppers go out there and hit for power, well, then these accent pieces, when they do go through some of those rough stretches, they're asked to do more than they should be asked to accomplish for you. Now Nolan Gorman needs to go up there and move runners over. Well, that's not what he's here to do. He's here to hit home runs. And he's not doing that enough right now, but by the end of the season, I think he will. Lars Nootbaar shouldn't be asked to be an RBI guy. That's not his job. His job is to get on base. And so you're having all of these guys asked to do different things than what they probably should be. And that's all because you're not getting the production that you expected out of Arenado and Goldie. And until that changes, this is probably going to be the kind of results that we should expect from the offense.
And even the deepest teams, like people will go and say, well, the Braves, they don't have this when Riley and Acuna aren't hitting, or the Phillies don't have this when Harper's not hitting. Yeah, okay, accent pieces can help carry a team for like maybe a week at best. Like if Brandon Marsh got hot for a week, and you saw this I think it was in the postseason, him or Bowen, one of those two got super hot for the Phillies. Yeah, they can do that for a week, but they're going to tail off because they're an accent piece. Your MVP guys, sure, they're going to go through struggles, but they're typically the most consistent player on your roster for a full 162, and they're the guys that should be carrying the team for a 3-week stretch. An accent piece isn't going to do that. You're not going to see for the Braves Michael Harris carry that team for a 5-week stretch while they're waiting for Acuna to figure things out. No, at some point, the big bats got to go, and if they don't go, it's why the Cardinals won't go.
That's why I look at the Dodgers. And if you take Freeman and Betts and have them doing what Goldschmidt and Arenado are doing, are people in LA complaining about the depth not coming up big? No, you're complaining about your guys that you're spending $600 million on
the playoffs.
not
they
hitting.
Won't be winning. Like Freeman and who's Betts were last year.
Now they have Ohtani also, but
last year they were awesome. Freeman and Betts were MVP caliber players. You know what they didn't do in the postseason? They didn't hit. You know what the accent pieces didn't do? They couldn't carry the team to playoff success.
Which is why I blame the offense so much about those even though I know it's small sample size in the playoffs, Goldie and Arenado did not hit, and everyone else couldn't hit. And now you're like, cool, our guys that are supposed to be the big boppers in the big moments can't get it done. What are we supposed to do?
Some optimism?
Sure.
You got another announcement?
I'm looking.
Another.
Are you going to announce like
Siani Head is about to take over?
Can you give me that one more time? Greg Amsinger is here.
It was me and Yonder Alonso sitting there watching Nolan Arenado take batting practice in California, in Anaheim. And we both got excited watching him launch baseballs. Launch. His swing looked like Colorado Rockies, Nolan Arenado. And Yonder Alonso texted and was like, hey, man, great PP. And Nolan must have gone back into the clubhouse, grabbed his phone, was like, oh, my gosh, I figured something out. And then that night he hit a home run. His batting practice has looked amazing ever since. So if you're looking at players who are like coming out of it, Alex Bregman's a great example of that with the Houston Astros. Expect Nolan Arenado to get on a tear.
And don't expect that.
Yeah, sure. If the pitcher is just going to throw tomatoes to him from the mound like in BP, then expect him to break out of it. What are we doing?
Tomatoes. I think the word you were looking for was meatballs.
No, tomatoes.
Either one.
Nolan Arenado, by the way, in his last, 10 games, is batting 195 with a 610 OPS. He has 2 home runs on that stretch, but just 1 double.
Oh, man, he's breaking through. I want to break free.
Dude, on the road trip, he had an OPS in the threes. In the threes. You know how hard that is?
But he didn't figure it out in the batting cages before that.
Dude, he had one more hit after that occasion. What are we talking about? I don't want to hear more about batting practice.
Yonder Alonso's the one that's texting him like, oh, man, great BP. I'm about to break through.
I am so tired of people being like, hey, look, Goldie's in the batting cage. That's what he does. He's a pro.
You know what the equivalent of this is? This is like Jordan Kyrou hitting one-timers on a power play in practice with no goaltender and saying, oh, man, I just figured something out. And if the goalie's not going to be on the far side post, I am going to score 3 tonight.
Yeah, you know who else probably hits the ball out of the ballpark in batting practice? Mason freaking Wynn, and he doesn't have a home run this season.
I hope Nolan Arenado gets Turner Ward to throw him the ball the next at-bat so that he can take it deep and break through on this BP.
I heard
what
a story
are we doing?
recently. I can't remember who it was, but somebody, when they're taking BP, what they'll do is they'll start out by dropping like 10 bunts. And they say that it gets them really locked in. That's what I imagine Nolan Arenado was doing during that batting practice.
Yonder Alonso was like,
Yonder's like, whoa, he is going to break out.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you can hear about how Sean McVay has been basically placed in a dungeon for the past 9 years with the Rams. Next year on 101 ESPN. Yesterday was the grand NFL schedule release. We all had to stop our lives to be able to find out which day, which time our favorite teams were going to be playing and whether or not those were going to be on national television. Well, ESPN had this whole show dedicated to it, Alex, and they had Sean McVay on the show, T-Bone's guy, the Rams head coach. And he was doing the interview from this like dimly lit room. It appeared that he was maybe in his basement or something, just renting an area. I wasn't sure exactly what was going on. And I appreciated that the ESPN NFL Live crew asked him, hey, where the hell are you, Sean? Where are you doing this interview from? And it wasn't exactly a great look for the Rams ownership from there. Take a listen.
He's not at the draft house. I know
Dan,
that.
I'm in the same temporary office that I've been for 8 years here. So when I was hired in 2017, they said this would be a temporary facility. We're going on year 9 in this thing, so we'll see if we make it over to the Woodland Hills. I'm trapped like a prisoner in this thing, man. I'm just fighting, scratching, and clawing for a window in this thing. I still think this office is pretty depressing, Adam.
I agree. You know, to me, if you win a Super Bowl, the office should be upgraded as a general rule. At least paint the walls.
Hey,
color
I
pop.
mean, you gotta get, what's Kevin Demoff doing, man? He's too busy dealing with the teams
Avalanche.
in Denver. I mean,
The Avalanche and the Nuggets.
I got urgent enjoyment behind me. I can't even get a window in here.
Kevin Demoff's not doing anything with the Avalanche right now.
Dude, that was
Respect.
amazing.
That was awesome. He won't be there very long, but that was awesome.
He flat out, like, he did it with a joke. But you know that old saying, there's a little truth to every joke?
Oh, yeah, that was...
He's not happy.
He'd been saving that up for, 8 years?
He was waiting for somebody to finally ask, hey, Sean, where are you? And him to be able to unleash on the organization. He's definitely talks about this with Kevin Demoff.
Oh, I'd like to see Demoff's office.
It was a sternly worded conversation. Yeah. Hey, Kevin, I've been in this office for 8 years. We've gone to the Super Bowl with me at the helm here. I have completely overhauled this organization. I work in an office without a window. Can you get me to an office with a window, please?
You said got to a Super Bowl. We won a damn Super Bowl, and I'm coaching.
Multiple.
I'm coaching in a cellar. I'd love to see Demoff's office because I guarantee it's got a nice window view.
What is so funny about this is, remember, it was after they won the Super Bowl. There was a bunch of talk of like, hey, McVay doesn't really want to do this anymore.
Yeah,
He's talking about going into being a broadcaster.
Look at this, Alex. This is
I saw it. I pulled it up. Yeah.
The Rams,
he has no lights behind him. I think the electricity's out.
The Rams said when McVay was like going through, Les Snead came out, we're going to do anything we can to help make sure that Sean McVay comes back. Surely the office had to be a part of that conversation, and it still isn't fixed.
I think he's got, what are those lights called? Those tube lights that just flicker like when you're in a cellar. That's what it looks like he's got his office lit with.
Dude, I cannot believe. Somebody said it was a freaking joke, guys. Sheesh, you guys are unbelievable. No.
Is that what the voice is?
I think I did a Dickie V impression.
Oh my God!
baby.
You know who he is? He's Milton from Office Space. Yeah, we're gonna have to relocate you to a different office. Can I have my stapler,
and
please?
He's been there for 8 years.
Hey, just need my stapler, please.
I feel like the organization just like forgot. And also,
shoot! Yeah, we got Sean down there.
It's not even the least bit surprising.
Demoff is going through his papers. Damn it! We forgot about Sean.
They get their brand new this beautiful stadium, and they're like, oh shoot, we didn't make the field the right way for us to be able to host a World Cup game. Oh shoot. We forgot we were supposed to, have this enclosed so that way we can play football throughout a rain delay and the lightning doesn't make us completely shut down operations inside of our dome.
Sean looks at his team and he's like, if anybody needs me, I'll be in my office. Like, yeah, where's your office at, coach?
The basement.
Exploring the entire building trying to find him.
It's unbelievable, man. All right, so that's
Poor
what
Sean.
it sounded like yesterday.
You know what? He should be somewhere better than that.
Sean McVay, the head coach of the Rams, future head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs after Andy Reid decides to call it a career.
I thought that was Mike Vrabel.
That could be either. He's Alex's T-Bone. I'm BK. Coming up next, T-Bone has never been happier listening to a podcast than he was yesterday when he heard somebody as a host say the third wild card is ruining the sport of baseball. We'll explain why coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
you're a business owner listening right now, check out the exterior of your business. Does it look worn down? Does it look old? Is the paint chipping off? Well, that's not a good representation of your business, which means you need an update, which means you need to call Rhino Shield. Tons of businesses have already taken advantage of the great work that Rhino Shield does on exteriors, on roofs. Chesterfield Amphitheater, Kempen Automotive over in House Springs, Cottleville Smiles, all businesses that called up Darren at Rhino Shield and wanted a change. And he provided, I've seen the pictures, there's pictures, the befores and after that Darren has sent me, and it's gone from rusty siding, water stains, paint chipping off, rusted roofs, and it's changed to a brand new look. That's what Rhino Shield provides. It's a 2 to 3 coating process. It's ceramic coating that sticks 8 to 10 times thicker than any other paint that you're going to buy over the hardware store, and it's backed by a 25-year transferable warranty. So if it's your business, if it's your home, you need to call Rhino Shield. Tell Darren Alex Ferrario sent you. 877-25-RHINO, 877-25RHINO.com.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, so the third wild card is ruining baseball. That's what the roundtable had to say yesterday on the Athletics baseball show. Alex, if there was only 2 wild card spots, the Cardinals would currently be 6.5 games back of said wild card.
The way it should be.
But because there are 3 wild cards currently, they're 2.5 games back. That's it. 2.5 games back of the final wild card spot, which is currently held by the Padres, the Diamondbacks, and the Nationals, all tied at the same record right now. They're all 2 games under 500.
And then that gives us BK, who's like, oh, they're still in this race.
Here's the roundtable yesterday discussing why it has been the downfall of baseball.
I don't want to get technical, but they're dog and they're hard to watch. Their longest winning streak is 2 games, right? So it's not great, and they're 2.5 games out of the wild card, which is stupid. It's stupid. It is. They should be buried by now, and they should. It should take them just some sort of ungodly run to get back into anything resembling a postseason picture. And I just hate the third wild card. The format was so perfect. You had this one Battle of Thunderdome. I loved that format, and this format's gone, and it's screwing up not just the postseason, but it's screwing up the regular season. It's screwing up your idea of what a team's potential is now.
T-Bone.
Of Brent Brisby via the Athletics Baseball Podcast.
Hallelujah.
I think they do a great job
Somebody
over
with
there.
sense.
He was not talking about the Cardinals, but all of that could have easily been about the Cardinals. He was referencing the Giants, who he's not kidding. They have literally not won more than 2 games in a row all season long. They have not had a single 3-game winning streak on the season, Alex. Not one. And yet, much like the Cardinals, they are now 1.5 games back in the wild card standings. The San Francisco Giants. And they're a bad baseball team. They have like 10 different guys that are now on the IL, including the vast majority of the names that you've probably heard of that play for the San Francisco Giants. That includes Blake Snell, by the way. Your guy Conforto now hurt for them as well. Their entire roster is basically on the IL. But they're still in it. because of this third wild card. And I think the point he makes, this was always my fear. I wasn't as opposed to it as T-Bone was, certainly when they first decided to come out with this. My fear, though, was it's going to push everybody to the middle. In the offseason, you can just construct your roster the way that the Cardinals have for the last, 10 years, because there's no need to really push. You set your roster up as a preseason team to win 80 to 85 games. And if you're in that range when you get to the deadline, you can add enough to where then you get to 85 to 90 wins. And if you're in that range, you're going to make the playoffs with the advent of the third wild card spot. The problem for the Cardinals is they're now on pace to be like a 75-ish win team this year.
Playoffs.
And so now you're like, if you get there, you're probably not buying at the deadline. But, man, there's going to be like 9 teams-ish in the National League that feel like they're still, quote-unquote, in it by the time you get to the trade deadline. And maybe 5 of them are actually like really meaningful contenders.
That's a high number. I was going to go like 7 of those 9 aren't really contenders.
Sure, probably. But like they'll convince themselves that they are. And to be fair, last year at that point, the Diamondbacks shouldn't have viewed themselves as a contender, but they did, and they ended up going to the World Series as a result.
I think it was the worst thing for baseball that 260 seeds in the last 2 years from the NL got to the World Series, because then it really did show like, hey, build an 80-win team and go add if needed. It ruins the offseason. Like, why were teams not willing to spend a ton of money this offseason? Look, they had the whole TV revenue thing. Man, some teams don't want to add because they've built an 80-win team. And they can wait till July to figure out if they're good or not. That's what the Mets did. And the Mets basically were a team that were, all right, let's build like 75, 80-ish team. And if, hey, we're kind of fun, we'll go out and add a piece that gets us potentially to the playoffs. It just stinks. Everybody is clogged together. The Cardinals should be buried. And you're giving this false pretense of hope of we could be a playoff team. No, your team sucks and they should admit it. And the Cardinals are in that spot right now. They're not a good baseball team, but they can continue to try and convince us that, hey, we can be in the playoffs. We can be in the playoffs.
Everybody's a 5-game winning streak away from really being in it.
And I don't think that is best for the league. Like, that should not be the case for this. You should have to be I would say 87-win team to really be a playoff team. And honestly, I love the old format. I know people are like, one game's not baseball. Man, it was exciting. And it took one little mistake to knock you out of the playoffs. And now you've got this best of 3, which, look, it's fine. But that 6 seed is not a good team. And you're always going to have somebody that's sitting around 500 that gets in that should not be awarded a playoff spot.
And to localize this a little bit with the Cardinals and why this is so frustrating, it provides, the Cardinals the opportunity to every season say, well, we got a shot at making the playoffs because there's so many opportunities. And let's take this season, for example. I don't think it's the main reason why, but would we have seen some type of decision, some type of aggressiveness to make a change for the Cardinals for their slow start if they would have been closer to being buried earlier rather than sitting here?
Likely if else.
I mean, I don't know if it's going to happen. Frankly, I don't know if it makes a difference, but it does provide the Cardinals the opportunity, and I gotta imagine Mo's got a big poster board in his office that says we've still got a chance because of the third wild card. You're 2.5 freaking games out when this team, as they mentioned, should be out of the conversation, should be talking about making firings and talking about being sellers by now. But instead, we're going to believe that the Cardinals still have a chance.
You'll probably push back on this. To me, it was harder to make. It's harder to build an 89 to 87 win team than it is to build one that's for 80 wins and then like add one piece that can improve you.
Agree.
And like that's what happened, and that's what a bunch of front offices now take the approach of. Baseball made it 5 times easier for GMs to do their job, and that's not what the big leagues are for. The big leagues it's supposed to be hard to play at the major league level, and it's supposed to be hard to run an organization. And it just got 5 times easier by adding a third wild card team. It's disgusting is what it is.
Last year at this point in the season,
it's a stupid thing.
The Cardinals were 17-26. So they were 1 game worse at this point last year than they are currently. They had the worst record at this point in the entire National League at this point in the season. And last year, they were 4.5 games back of the wild card spot. This year, you're 2.5 games back by being 1 game better. So it's roughly the same. Like the last wild card team last year at this point in the season was exactly 500. It was the Miami Marlins at 21-21 at this point in the season. This year, it's teams that are 2 games below 500. And this is just a sign of how teams are going to continue to build. If I'm a general manager, if we're just being totally honest, what they're doing is smart. Now, it's not good for the game, in my opinion. It's not good for fans at all. And I don't think it's good for players long term. And this was my frustration when players signed up for the final wild card spot, the extra wild card spot, is that, like, just think about the logical endpoint for this. If I'm a general manager or an owner, more importantly, why am I building to win 100 games? Why? I've seen it for 15 years in Major League Baseball. Teams that just get in, they have a chance. The 2014 Royals, the 2011 and 2006 Cardinals, each of the last 3 seasons, the team that's made it from the National League via the wild card here as well. Like, I have no incentive to push all my chips into the middle because I'm watching teams do that and they're struggling to get any further in the playoff. Like, the success rate of teams that push all in is lower than the success rate of teams that just get in as one of the final wildcard spots. So why am I paying the extra $100 million to try to do that? Why am I going out and, if I'm the Cardinals, adding that extra starter, adding that extra bench bat, adding that extra reliever? There's no incentive to do so. I shouldn't do that. It makes more sense for me to wait, get to the deadline when I can spend a third of that guy's salary that I otherwise would have added in the offseason, and then they can help me for the stretch run. And it gives me the benefit of time to find out who are the starters that actually make it to August. So it sucks, dude. It's not good for the game. I understand why they did it, because it's money, it's revenue, but it's bad for everybody involved other than the owners.
Yeah. And their whole point of, well, more markets are now in it when you get to the deadline, and that's what makes it exciting. No, you're like looking at a mediocre product.
Yeah, when if you're a fan of the team that gets in, you're like, do you think
it's
the
like
fan
pretending to enjoy the jerseys right now? It's mediocre jerseys that they've got on right now.
Like, let's just take hockey. And I mean, hockey, I know 16 teams get in, but like, do you think the fans of the Washington Capitals, sure, you're in the playoffs, but you think you're really excited about being in the playoffs? You know your team kind of is dog poo. So like, that's going to be the same. If we're talking about this come August, this team is not a playoff contending team. And do we really have to sit here and fool ourselves saying, oh man, they're going to get a 1-game wild card to potentially get into the playoffs?
The entire list of teams that are currently in the wild card race, quote unquote, from the National League that are above 500, at least 6-4 in their last 10 games. Here's the list: the Braves and the Diamondbacks. That's it.
And the Braves are like legitimately, they push their chips in.
They're really good. They're really, they just happen to play in the division with the Phillies, who are also really good. Maybe the best team in baseball so far this year. There's 2 teams out of this, 13-team race in the National League for the wild card that are above 500 in their last 10 games. And there's only 2 of these teams that are above 500 in general on the season. It stinks. It's a terrible race. I did want to get to one other thing before we get to Believe It or Not, but we'll get into it on the other side because I want to get your reaction to it. Something else from the roundtable on Paul Skeens, his debut, and what everybody lost their mind about. I think I'm going old man yells at cloud after Believe It or Not here on 101 ESPN.
Sing it, boys.
Hashtag suckage.
Just for all those third wildcard teams. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
free. Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
Believe it or not, it's just me.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. You give us a scenario, we'll tell you if we are believing it or not. The YouTube chat off and running as well over at youtube.com/101ESPN While you're over there, hit that like button for us.
Drop that tongue emoji.
Go ahead and subscribe as well. That really does a lot
Here they come.
A lot of good for us over on YouTube.
Cat Dad Gamer's going to swing in right now.
Oh, yeah, he's my favorite.
Guys, for Believe It or Not, I would like to start with some more audio from the round.
Oh, believe it. Oh, you're going to play it. It's your show, so.
Because I want to play off of this, and I think I'm going to do an old man yells at clouds.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go.
I'm old. I'm just old. I just don't understand exaltation of velocity, given everything we know about what it does to the human arm and everything we've seen. And like the way his outing was described versus what the box score reads, there's just such like a gap in between those that like I just fear that as a media apparatus, we have lost the plot on how to explain to public what is happening. He faced 20 batters and 9 reached base. Like, that's not great.
He's describing Paul Skeens and his debut that took place last weekend for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Alex, I had these updates that were coming to my phone all weekend about, hey, Paul Skeens, what was it, 12 times a pitch that he threw reached at least 100 miles per hour. Just this crazy, impressive debut. Have you guys looked at what his actual debut performance was? Just, like, look at the game log, what he was able to accomplish there. Have you seen it, Alex?
No.
Paul Skeens in his debut performance. Amazing performance. 4 innings, 6 hits, 2 walks, 3 earned runs, 1 home run. So we went 4 innings and allowed 3 earned runs, but we got all excited because he struck out 7 in the game. Half of the players that he went up against, half of the batters that came to the plate against Paul Skeens reached base against him. The entire goal of pitching is to prevent those players from reaching base. I think Paul Skeens is eventually going to be a really good pitcher. But you know I'm process over results, right, Alex?
Ain't that the truth?
The process and the results were bad. He did not have a good debut performance. He may be excellent down the road, but believe it or not, Alex, we have gone too far in the process over results when it comes to what we are trying to describe with baseball analysis.
Believe it, because I just pulled up Steven Strasburg's
That's exactly what I did.
First start. Here's his line: 7 innings, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 14 strikeouts.
No walks.
That is an impressive debut.
No walks, by the way.
And
Now,
94
that is what
pitches.
it looks like.
94 pitches he did that. Yeah, so I'm believing this. Like, this is way I turned on the start because there was so much hype and I wanted to see it. The time he gave it the first run, I'm like, okay, cool. You're not as exciting as I thought you were going to
and
be.
I think he very well may end up being amazing. It's totally in play that he's going to be an unbelievable starter.
But like that wasn't,
dude.
Yeah, that wasn't.
Get out of here with this.
That wasn't the start of your Hall of Fame career. Like, watching that, I'm sure he wants to forget that outing.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you guys. Believe it.
We've
because
lost the plot.
6.75 ERA after your first start tells me it's not good. Strasburg's was 2.57. Like, that's a good outing.
Yeah.
And yes, as a whole, we continue to lower our expectations. 4 innings, that's not good for a starter. I don't care what his runs were. He could have struck out all 12 batters he saw. 4 innings is not good from a starting pitcher. You need more length, and you need better performance. And to our third wild card point, we lower expectations by rooting for 83-win teams.
I think we've gotten to this place where, like, we value too many different things differently. You know what I value? And this is going to be crazy. Luis Arraez hitting the ball a lot, consistently.
Slow bat.
He's unbelievable at making contact and converting that contact into hits. The best in the league right now. And that guy was traded for, like, nothing. It was a decent return. People seem to like the guys that the Marlins got in return for him. But come on, that guy was available, and there were teams like banging down the door to get the guy that consistently leads the league in batting average. Batting average is not the end-all be-all, but it does matter. Guys going out there and consistently giving you 7+ innings of 3 earned runs or fewer, that matters, dude. There's value in that. It's why last year when Aaron Nola became available, I was like, hey, go get that guy. He's really good at baseball. I know he's not going to strike out 40% of the batters that he faces. He's not going to go out there and become Paul Skeens. I don't want him to be. Sometimes it's okay to just be a really good pitcher. I think we've lost the plot on some of this stuff where we are too interested in the process and we don't care enough about the results. In Major League Baseball, I think it's happening in basketball as well. The expected goal stuff in soccer, like people tell me that this year's version of City is better, but I watch the games and they don't score goals.
Yeah, it's not better.
So
it's not.
I have a really hard time believing maybe over time they will get better. But like the 2022 Blues, that was a good hockey team despite every analytics person telling you that they weren't. They were good. They were good at scoring goals.
Right.
And like the Vancouver Canucks, they were supposed to like completely disappear. They're supposed to be terrible because none of it was sustainable. Guess what, guys? They're still playing. They're really good at hockey. I'm sorry. I think we've lost the plot on some of this stuff.
I wish we had the cut from the podcast of the Roundtable, because the voice you just heard for that Skeens thing was Andy McCullough. I wish we had the cut where he said the Nerds have won, because it's true.
And the Nerds are yelling about winning.
I know. Well, that's
I'm
like
a nerd, but we've gone too far with
He's talking about the super nerds. You know, like wear the glasses.
I think I'll wear mine tomorrow.
Also wears them.
Oh.
He's even got the nose with the mustache, too.
We have gone way too far with this, where we don't care about the actual wins and losses. Like in the NBA, nobody actually cares about who's playing anymore. Nobody. They're talking about the Cavs and what they're going to do this offseason. And where's Donovan Mitchell going to go? And hey, what's going to happen with LeBron? Who's going to draft Bronny? Is that guy going to end up being the player or the team that gets LeBron James?
Playoffs
Who's
must be
coaching
over.
the Lakers next year? Who's coaching the Suns next year?
The playoffs must be over.
All of that, everything that's going to happen this offseason is about getting to where teams are still playing right now. It's to win. And we just don't care about the winning anymore. It's so weird to me. I'm sorry.
Got to play defense in the NBA, though.
I'm sorry.
I just don't do that.
Playoffs are over in the NBA when they expanded the playoffs.
The NBA product's not that good. And you'll tell me it is.
It's really not, though.
Trust me, I've seen guys play defense. It ain't in the NBA. No, it's not in the NBA.
You know what you do if you want to win basketball games? You hire Thibodeau.
No,
because he's going to play your best players.
Your mic's about to be turned off. Let's relax.
You know what you do in Major League Baseball to win games?
You hire Joe Madden.
An old school manager. Like, I've lost.
Oh, there it is, Joe Madden. Welcome to the Cardinals, Joe.
Sorry, Ollie. You're gone.
You know what you do in hockey to win? You fire your coach 3 years after you hire him, because that's the only way apparently teams can win.
I think the Nerds have officially lost me. We've gone too far. Alex, what do you got?
Welcome aboard then, buddy. Believe it or God, honestly, I don't even remember what mine was for how long that ran. Go ahead.
Guys, believe it or not, David Bell of the Cincinnati Reds is the first manager fired in the NL Central.
Well, the Pirates won't do anything.
Well, certainly not.
Cubs are good. I think it's the Reds or the Cardinals. And frankly, I'd say not believe it. I'll say the Cardinals.
I strangely think the Reds had higher expectations this year than the Cardinals from the fan base. And what is happening right now is a massive disappointment by them. And Ellie De La Cruz has been everything they expected and then some. So, yeah, I'll go David Bell.
And they're dealing with some injuries, but not a lot. Like, it's not the Brewers level of injuries. I believe this as well. As much as people think Ollie's going to get fired, I think they would promote someone from within, or honestly, Joe Madden would make a ton of sense for them.
Or they call Skip and be like, hey, you want out of Miami now?
Exactly. Like, Skip played for the Reds. Yeah. Like, I think they should be targeting, he should be their number one target this offseason, and then probably Joe Madden.
The Cardinals get there first.
But I think David Bell's going to be fired by the time we get to June. We talked about June 1st as that spot for the Phillies when they fired Joe Girardi. Bell's going to be that guy, because what the Reds are doing, they're in turmoil. David Bell's not a good manager.
All right, I remembered mine now. Believe it or not, guys, the Edmonton Oilers will be the most active team this offseason.
Oh, I saw this the other day. Wyshynski said they're the team that's the most interesting heading into this offseason to him.
And they're tied now 2-2, I think, with Vancouver.
Yeah.
2-2.
I think game 5.
Game 5 is, game 5 is tonight.
Make sure we didn't have it here.
We'll have the NBA Game 6 tonight.
Sweet.
That's a really interesting series between the T-Wolves and the Nuggets. The Nuggets are
T-Bone is going to be locked in.
Sweep.
If you're rooting for defense, that's not the game.
So if they get bounced...
Between the Nuggets and the Timberwolves?
Stop it. There's no defense being played.
Dude, I just cannot disagree. Okay.
So if you're the Oilers, they have 8 forwards under contract next year. They have 5 defensemen and 2 goaltenders under contract next year, and they have $8.9 million in cap space.
I find them to be the most interesting because if Draisaitl says I want out, it is the most intriguing headline since Matthew Tkachuk.
What if McDavid says he wants out?
Oh.
Yes.
I mean, they like legit might have a problem with that. Huh? He's got 2 more years at 12.5. Okay. But, I mean, there's a legit shot. McDavid says, I'm 27, going to be 28 years old. This team has not been able to win. We've gone through like 9 head coaches since I've been here. I don't want to play here anymore.
McDavid is originally from Ontario?
Ottawa, Canada.
What if Brady Tkachuk?
I don't think you lose any trade you make if you're the Edmonton Oilers.
Sure. But if he forces your hand, that's probably the guy that you target, right?
I mean,
if he says, I want to go to Ottawa, I don't know why he would say, I want to go to Ottawa.
I want to go to Ottawa, then yeah, you got to get their best. Frankly, It would be Brady Tkachuk. No, not even Shabbat. It would be Tkachuk and Pinto and Stützle. Like, you'd be asking for all of those guys. You'd be resetting your...
Would you do that?
If I was Ottawa?
Like, if you're...
Look, no, as great as McDavid is, if I was Ottawa, hell no. Because that's 3 good players for 1 great player. My team still sucks.
That's why I'm saying...
If I'm Edmonton, yeah, probably. If I get Draisaitl to sign on the dotted lines that you will sign here, if we get this trade, yeah, I would probably do that because you get an entire top line for 1 trade.
Davis could be so awesome in Golden Knight.
No, he's going to be great in Colorado when he wants to go play with Nathan McKinnon.
314-399-9646.
You know what? The nerds have broke me too.
Is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not.
I've got a lot off my chest.
I do feel like today was a purge day for some reason.
Believe it or not, guys, Yadier Molina, this comes from the 314, will actually show up to at least 1 game in Cardinals uniform this year.
You think he's coming up with this show? No.
No. He ain't showing up until he hears rumors that Ollie's being fired. I think guess who will appear. You see Ollie in the dugout. Or wait, no.
Well, Ollie in the dugout, he should be in there.
You see Yachty in the dugout, my guess is he's got a sense that Ollie's being fired.
Yeah. Believe it or not, the NBA is more of a reality TV show than it is a sports league at this point. I think a lot of people do not watch the NBA and they just consume basketball content, whether it's through podcasts or highlights or whatever.
The NBA is about wardrobe. That's what I feel like. The NBA is all about what does the person wear to the walk-in before the game. And then by then, nobody's talking about
Believe it or not, the Battlehawks will be the only STL playoff team this year. They got to win this week.
Aren't they in danger of missing the playoffs? I'm not going to believe this because I think City will make the playoffs. Granted, they're like fringe playoff team right now. Thank goodness we have a bunch of playoff teams in the MLS. But I would not believe because I think City will make it.
I'm not going to believe it because I think the St. Louis Cardinals will make it.
Stop it.
Shut the hell up.
He's Alex, the Steve Vaughn on BK. Why is it that every NBA player seems so unhappy? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my insurance agent, Tracy Bibb. I'm headed out on a road trip this weekend, going on a golf trip with my dad. And at those times, you know, you're on the road for a while. You got to make sure you're taken care of and you have the right insurance agent when it comes to your insurance. And that's what Tracy Bibb and her team offer over at Allstate. First of all, you get the most competitive rates, always in contact with you. It's personal attention that you get from your insurance agent. And what Tracy Bibb and her team are always preaching is it's not a matter of if something happens. happens. It's when it happens. And when it's a fender bender on the side of the road, when it's hail damage on your vehicle, on your roof, a tree falls on your roof, you got to have somebody that you can call. And Tracy is always available for you. So you can give her a call today. Tell her Alex Ferrario sent you. You heard me talk about it on the radio, and she will get you a free non-committal quote today. Walk you through the whole process. Super easy, super simple. 314-328-4260. That's 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the bib.
With a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals fell to the Angels last night 7-2. They are off today, back in action tomorrow when they start a 3-game set with the Boston Red Sox. 7:15 will be first pitch tomorrow, as Kyle Gibson will be on the mound for St. Louis. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, we've got the NBA playoffs for you. Game 6 between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets, and we'll have pregame coverage starting at 7 o'clock. The Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, independent American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning dealer.
All right, with Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. I was going to talk about how NBA players are so unhappy right now, but there's some news coming out of the St. Louis City SC press conferences today. Edward Lowen scheduled to speak with the media, and he's doing so right now. I'm just going to read this from some of the press that is there right now. This is a quote from Edward Lowen on why he's been out for City. Quote, "I think this is a great opportunity for me to be as transparent as possible. It was kind of out of nowhere. My wife had some serious medical issues. She had surgery. It just got worse and worse, and we found out that she has cancer."
Jeez.
He said, "I want to take the opportunity to thank everybody at the club for supporting me. I appreciate this setting to be able to talk so openly about this because I know where I come from. This can sometimes be seen as weakness." According to those that are at the press conference right now, he said that his wife had brain cancer.
Oh my gosh.
And that's why he's been out for a little while, which is more than understandable, to say the least.
Yikes.
I respect the hell out of the fact that St. Louis City SC was able to keep this under wraps. I respect the hell out of the fact that he is able and willing to speak so openly about this in a press conference setting. This had to be unbelievably difficult for both him and for his family. Can't imagine my mom growing up. I was in 7th grade when she was diagnosed with cancer. She had a 7-pound tumor in her stomach, and it took months and months and months to get treatment, and then eventually surgery. She had to go down to MD Anderson in Houston, and thank God for one of the greatest treatment centers in the world to be able to cure her, and she's been cancer-free ever since. But, like, going through that, and that's, I mean, hers was very, very problematic, but brain cancer, dude, I can't imagine. So, yeah, I think suddenly now that we understand why he was missing games, Alex, it makes a lot of sense. And dude, take as much time as you need. God bless him for even being there.
I was going to say, I don't even know if I'd be wanting him back on this team right now. I mean, this guy's 27 years old, which I would imagine his wife is probably close to his age. I mean, that's about as scary as you can ask for this. And this is I'm still like in awe, like that's what's taking place. But yeah, I mean, this is the part that, when people get so upset when we're talking about the players and when we say like, hey, there's a personal side to this that nobody really understands. This is about as honest and upfront and frankly as naked of a comment that you can ask from an athlete, because we view them in a different world than what we are. And I mean, how vulnerable can you be to sit here in front of people that are wondering why you haven't been around the team that has been up and down the season and say, yeah, my wife's got cancer. That's awful. I hope that at least there's some type of positive path for them right now, and that's why he's returning. That means like, hey, we see a road to recovery. We're working through this, and I feel like I'm ready to come back. But man, that's about as difficult of a thing that somebody can handle in their family as I can even imagine.
And like I said, credit to City for just being there in whatever way that they can.
And supporting them through that all.
And keeping this behind the scenes and saying, hey, listen, like, Leuven's going to be taking care of his own business, and they made that very clear throughout. And when he's able to come back and return, it was very hush-hush, and I think there were times, especially for fans, where I would imagine a lot of people grew frustrated by not being able to have Leuven on the field, because he's one of your best players, right? I mean, he's arguably your second best player behind your goalie. Berkey. But man.
And here's the thing with this too, BK. Like, he didn't owe anybody an explanation.
No.
Like, he did not owe anybody to stand up there in front of that press conference. All he needed to do was say, yeah, I had some family stuff and I'm back now. That's what most athletes probably would do in that scenario. But for him, and I think it's important to go to that first comment that you said that he mentioned, was like, yeah, this is viewed as a weakness where he's from. And now he's doing something that he's uncomfortable with for the first time, with something that is very difficult to handle. And he's going to be open and honest with it. Like, if you've ever had an athlete to root for and kind of rally around, it would be somebody like this.
Being vulnerable in public is hard, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's really hard.
Damn, I can't get over that, man. That's, like, it's one thing to come out and say with cancer, but brain cancer, I don't even know how somebody could function. If that was my wife, I don't know how you could function.
It's horrible news, and I hope everything ends up going all right for them in terms of her being okay and them getting the treatment that is obviously necessary for that. But wanted to pass that news along. We'll get to our regular shenanigans coming up next year on BK and Ferrario, the Rewind on 101 ESPN. Hey, if you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check out the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It is all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Today's the last day for the week that we'll have Alex Ferrario as a part of our show. It was nice to have you here, Alex, today. I know
beautiful.
You decided not to come in yesterday. You're not going to be here tomorrow.
Oh, my daughter.
Nice 3-day work week for you.
My daughter had her graduation from her parents' day out that I wanted to make sure I was there for, and
yeah, whatever. I see where your priorities lie.
Yeah, you're right. You are absolutely correct. And then tomorrow, I'm doing the very important road trip of going on a golf trip with my dad.
Nice.
Yep. Headed to Tunica, Mississippi.
How do you feel about your golf game right now heading in? You feeling good?
Yeah.
Are you in a good spot?
I feel like I'm Scotty Scheffler these days when I'm on the course.
That's good.
When I'm on the links.
He's playing well, from what I understand.
I'm going to play well this weekend, hopefully.
Okay. You gave us, what's the list of the liquors that you guys are bringing with you?
Pink Whitney, Grey Goose, Crown Apple,
and Jägermeister?
Something Howler Head Jaeger. Yeah.
What a weekend that'll be.
It's going to be one. I tell you what, guys, I'll do a live hit.
I would drink one of those four.
I will do a live hit with you guys tomorrow at some point. You call me when.
Well, you're not going to be there whenever you're.
Well, that's true. That's true.
If we were on the air on Sunday while you were on the links, I would absolutely give you a call.
No.
Now, we'd have to have the dump button
T-Bone
ready to go.
T-Bone would have to do a lot of work. Tell you what, I'll send you guys a mic drop on Saturday, and then we'll go back and we'll get it on Monday. Well, you guys can go back and get it on Monday.
Okay. I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
I'll send a mic drop Saturday, mid 36 holes.
Just send me or Tanner a voicemail, and then we can record that and play it for the show on Monday.
I'm busy this weekend. I do not need a drunk phone call from
All right.
Alex
Well,
Ferrario.
T-Bone's officially getting that phone call now.
I'll block your number.
No, you won't.
I will.
But yeah, that's what's on the agenda. So I appreciate you letting me come in on Thursday, BK.
All right, Alex. So since you're not going to be here tomorrow to discuss it, we're going to spend, me and T-Bone, the majority of our show, I would imagine, tomorrow talking about the Cardinals versus the Red Sox.
Perfect time to take off, I guess.
A series that will actually tell us something about where this team's at right now.
Mm-hmm.
Gibson, Michaelis, Liberatore are your expected starters going up against one of the best rotations based on what they've done so far this year in Major League Baseball. What are your expectations going into this weekend?
Losing all 3 games. What's the Red Sox bullpen been like, too? They're good, also.
Yeah, they have one of the best pitching staffs in the sports.
The Cardinals seem to only have the success when they're going up against a really bad pitcher like we saw in the Angels or a bullpen that is in shambles. They don't have an opportunity, at least they haven't been able to showcase any ability to win games when from start to finish you're going up against some elite stuff on the mound. And if your offense doesn't provide, I would say 2 of those pitchers are going to give you competitive outings. But if your offense doesn't hit and you're going to be using your bullpen probably aggressively for one of those starts, I just don't see a recipe for success against the Red Sox. I don't know if you win a game, and then that is going to down spiral into the following series because you've overworked in certain areas.
Yeah, I think they probably dropped 2 of 3 in this series because I just don't think this roster as currently constructed is sustainable. And what I mean by that is the fact that you have to stick with Matthew Liberatore as your number 5 starter. So now the bullpen's getting worse because you pull out your second best left-hander. And honestly, the rotation's starting to show cracks. Like, I feel good about Kyle Gibson on the mound tomorrow. I don't know what the hell to expect out of Miles Michaelis. I really don't expect anything good to happen when Matthew Liberatore has to start a baseball game. And offensively, I'm not buying what I saw from the LA Angels. That series was like a fraudulent. It showed the offense as a fraud, is what it did. Is it showed that, hey, they can hit bad pitching? Well, yeah, every offense can hit bad pitching.
You should be able to.
Now you're really going to see pitching. And if you can't come through with runners in scoring position against the freaking LA Angels, you're not going to get runners in scoring position against the Boston Red Sox. So I think this is the beginning. If you had any hope left, I think this is the beginning of that downward spiral for the St. Louis Cardinals.
You've got, 6 games before you have the day off, then you take on the Cubs because it's Red Sox and Orioles. Correct. I think you win 1 game of those next 6. Yeah. And in that scenario, you go into that Cubs series 1-5 in those 6 games, and serious questions of what to do with this Cardinals team.
Your left-handed bats have to get going. If you're going to perform well in this series, it's going to come down to your lefties because you've got 3 righties on the mound for the Red Sox in this one. And you came into the season expecting that was going to be something that was a differentiating factor from other teams across the National League. Look at the quantity of left-handed bats the Cardinals currently have on the roster. They're littered throughout this lineup, dude. There's a ton of them. And so far this year, you have not been able to get the production that you expected. That's Donovan. That's Newport. Carpenter needs to continue to play well. Siani, hopefully he's able to have some success. And I'm not even kidding about that. This weekend against the right-handed starters that you're going up against, Gorman. All of those guys need to be in the lineup. Burleson consistently. And if they have a little bit of success, it'll give you opportunities. I am seriously worried about the pitching over the weekend. It's funny because the offense has been the issue all year long. My concern this weekend is about the pitching, because your offense is going to have a hard time scoring against the best pitching, or one of the best pitching staffs in Major League Baseball. They have like a 3.0 ERA on the season as a team. You're going to have to get really good pitching in this series, and I have zero reason to believe that they will. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. We'll be on the air from 11 to 2. Alex Ferrario will be out tomorrow. He'll be back in with us next Monday. Very tired, very hungover. Looking forward to getting that version of Alex Ferrario back. So for Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
I don't want to get technical, but they're dog and they're hard to watch.